This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have similar ambition to progress in business and personal growth. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. This is simply a documentary of our lives, and as such, we do not monetize these videos, so enjoy the ad-free content. Today, we'll discuss everything surrounding the idea of happiness, how we define it, why we crave it, how we can live without letting our need for happiness control us, and much more. But first, we start each episode with a brief update on where we're at in our business and personal lives so that when we go back and watch these in the future, we can track where we are in our process. So what do you have for business this week?
This week, I got some more content back from creators, so that's all good and dandy.
This is organic content?
Yep.
Cool.
So got that back.
I'm learning the terms.
Yeah. I got my replacement ad accounts.
Awesome.
There's a whole slew of issues.
With the new accounts?
Yeah, they are. I was uninformed that they would be in euros, and then while I was sleeping, they messaged me and said, "How much would you like to transfer from your USD account into the new accounts in euros?" And then immediately responded to themselves 30 minutes later and said they transferred 500 euros into my euro account.
So they had access to your USD account?
Well, yeah, I send them the money.
Got it.
Yeah, so it's their money at the point I send it to them.
Got it.
And so they transferred that over, and then I spent 4 days fighting with them, not even to get the money back. And I was trying to get it transferred back to the USD account because they transferred it from an account that was actively spending in USD to an account that had nothing on it in euros.
Right.
And so they took away money from an account that was actively spending and put it on an account that was completely inactive.
Right.
And so
For no stated reason. Right.
no confirmation and no permission or no request on my behalf at all.
Right.
And I didn't ask them to do it, and I didn't want them to do it.
Right.
And so I spent some days trying to get it back into the USD account. And then after I gave up on trying to do that, I was trying to understand how they turned 780 USD into 500 euros. Because that conversion, it's around 560 USD to 500 euros. And so there's like 220 USD somewhere in the ether.
Right.
That I've now spent
Transferring.
I've now spent 6 days trying to understand where it is.
Is it the same ad agency that you used previously?
Or yeah, and had good experience with them.
Huh.
And so now I believe I'm talking to the owner, and he's trying to track it down for me, or understand what's going on.
Right.
And so it's baffling to me. Like, it was like one of those situations where I'm asking them, I'm like, okay, you guys transferred over some amount of USD into euros to spend on this other account. And I was like, I even left that out of it after multiple days of this fiasco. I said, you transferred over some amount of USD into euros. Okay. I know I have 500 euros in this account. How much is left in USD? And they said, your full balance is in EUR. I said, it can't be, because I know how much these accounts have spent. I know how much I've sent you. It's literally in your own portal. I don't even have to calculate it for you.
Right.
There's a net of at least $220 that is somewhere.
The euro has not been stronger than the dollar in a long time.
Well, it's a tiny bit stronger, but not much.
I thought it was like 500 US dollars is like 560 European dollars.
No, other way.
It's the other way.
Other way. Yeah.
So it's stronger, but not
like,
by
the transfer rate's like 1.12. Like, it's a very small difference. And so, like, I was talking to them and I was like, where is the USD? And they're like, we've transferred your full balance. And I'm like,
at what conversion rate?
Yeah. And I'm like, at what conversion rate? And they're like, we can send you a book report. And I'm like, I don't want a fucking book report of your invoicing. Like, I don't want to go through your Excel sheets. I've gone through mine. Go through yours.
Yeah.
Like, do your part of this exchange.
Right.
Okay? I'm not going to micromanage your business and figure out these issues and look through your bookkeeping. Like,
Can you just ask
why do I hire you?
Can you just ask them to put your full balance from euros back to USD?
So that's what I started by doing. They transferred it to euros instantly, and they told me it would take a week to get back to USD.
That's
I was like,
yeah.
that's awfully convenient, isn't
Yeah.
it? And then they tried to sell me on how it's better to the new account in euros is stronger and blah blah blah. And I was like, honestly, I don't care. Like, I want to spend the money with them and then move to someone else, but I need access to the friggin' money to spend it.
Right.
And so I've been fighting with them, a massive time waster.
Is this a European company?
Um, I don't actually know
Okay.
where they're concretely based.
Got it.
I'm not sure.
I just can't think of a different reason that you would want to use a euro.
Um, with the ad account stuff, it's like ad accounts from certain regions or through certain business managers or issued by certain groups often have greater strength to like flagging and stuff like that. So there could be a reason of why they're going to these ad accounts for sure.
But they still need your permission.
They A, still need my permission, and B, like, even if they transfer money around without my permission, which is one issue,
Right.
they should at least be able to tell me what I have where.
Right.
Which is like real basic, like beyond even the point of like you moved around money without my permission, my money that I gave you,
Right.
right? Like, now you came and told me concretely where all of it is.
Yeah. And that's suspicious because it's like if you
It is. It makes me worry. I'm like, bro, like,
Right. Well, and if I wonder if you open with that and say, "Hey, listen, dude, you're not being transparent with hey, Mr. Owner Man, you're not being transparent with where my money is. This doesn't fill me with confidence to want to spend more money with you. So I could take my business to a different ad agency.
yeah, yeah,
Be transparent, right? Like you can lose all of my future. I put thousands of dollars into my ad accounts, right?
yeah,
So you lose out on the potential of me spending thousands of dollars with you over the next few months, over $200 today, because there's some you're skimming and not telling me.
yeah,
Something.
yeah. And
Right.
so that was a relatively frustrating. And I'm is relatively frustrating because I haven't resolved it.
Right.
But also they issued it in the wrong time zone, and it's like not that much off. But I'm like, bro, like
They issued it in the wrong.
the new ad accounts, they gave it to me in the wrong time zone. It wasn't the time zone I requested. I requested CST
Right.
because I like having all of my stuff synced up, and all of my previous accounts are in CST, which means that they start at 2 in the morning, which means I have a little bit of leeway beyond midnight to actually get my stuff published. These ones are in EST without daylight savings.
So it's an hour behind.
Right.
Got it.
So 1 a.m. right now is actually midnight on the account, which
Right.
doesn't align with my time or the other ad account time.
It's also
So now I
yes.
have another like thing to coordinate with.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so now you transferred money without my permission. You can't tell me where my money is. You're giving me bullshit reasons for bookkeeping and transfers and how it's going to be delayed. And you issued me ad accounts in the wrong time zone.
Right.
And I'm like, is there anything more you could have screwed up in this process? You have 2 jobs. Make sure that my accounts are funded with my money, and make sure that the ad accounts are issued to the specifications that I request.
Right.
Neither of which were met.
Why do you use this ad agency?
Because all of the alternatives suck. All the options suck, and they
All of
all
the
have
options.
different issues.
Hmm.
They all have different issues. There is one, it's not an ad agency. It's a Meta representative who actually,
And you've had good experience with Meta.
yeah. But, another thing I can try is that this Meta rep, essentially what I figured out through this process is that the ad agencies essentially borrow ad accounts from Meta representatives and then sell them off to people like me to spend on, and then the ad agency is the middleman who takes the fee in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, there's someone else I can work with that's from the ad agency directly, but they need like business EIN and like a few other things. Like they need, like, you need to be like a real business, real legit, and they're more particular about how you send money, and so it's a lot more strict.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. The thing is I need my business EIN. So this week I formed the LLC, and I have the tracking for it, but it's probably going to be a week or two until like I actually see it.
I thought you had an LLC. I thought you had an LLC
No,
when you got the credit card.
no,
Business.
no. The business
Got it.
credit card, there's a business credit card under my social under a sole proprietorship.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So once I get that EIN, I can try going directly through this Meta rep, which is a little bit more stringent. It's a little bit more strict, but if it works, I'm more than happy.
Right.
Additionally, I got a referral for something called a slash account, which is it's a bank account specifically made for entrepreneurs. And so they don't have like, I was looking at part of what I did this week was looking at credit cards and stuff like that. And just digging into the different offers, and none of the offers enticed me, at least today in any way. It was a lot of like Uber and dining and air travel and all this other stuff. And I was like,
Looking for like gas back stuff.
I just want a percentage cash back, and I want the best I can get.
Got it. I see what you're saying.
And so like a lot of those offers really didn't entice me in any way. There was one card from Chase that gave you 3% back on all ad spend with any social media.
That's good.
That would be wonderful if I could get a card link to my account without the account being flagged.
And if you could actually spend that money, and does that work if it's in euros, or does it have to be in dollars?
Right. Yeah. So a whole bunch of issues there. So maybe for the future I can work something out.
Right.
But this slash account, it's strictly built for entrepreneurs. They have zero rewards at all. All they have is a percentage cash back.
Is Slash a bank?
Yes. Yeah. It's relatively new. It was formed in 2018.
Is it online?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got
All
it.
online.
Got it.
And so their base card is free, and it's 1.5% cash back. Their
Okay.
premium plan is $20 a month. They have an interesting structure. It's $20 a month, and it's 2% cash back.
Okay.
I got a offer from the owner. So I got an offer through my mentor to get in a group chat with the owner of the company, as well as a card that's 2.3% cash back on all expenditures.
For how
I
much a
don't
month?
know how much a month. Not yet.
Presumably not too much more than 20.
Probably not too much. It would probably be worth it.
So let's see.
But I have to figure it out.
$20 a month to meet the 2% cash back. How much spending is that a month to make?
$1,000.
And you spend more than that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Save money. Okay.
Yep.
Better
So-
than when I was looking at like Amex and stuff. The highest they had was like,
I think around 2, because I looked
around
at
there.
some of them.
yeah, but those are all
Um,
personal cards. Those aren't business cards.
Yeah, I looked at some of their
Sure,
business
they're
stuff, but it was a
business.
lot of like similar style, like air travel and blah blah blah. And I was like,
A lot of it,
at least right
think-
now, I don't need
I
it.
think it's for personal business expense, not like running a business expense, you know?
Yeah, so
It's for like, oh, you're an international businessman and you have got to fly to Hong Kong to,
right,
do
right,
deals,
which
or
is
whatever.
not what I'm doing. at all.
Exactly. Right. It's actual like, okay, I need to buy shipments of product to sell secondhand. So like I need to pay for transportation, I need to pay for shipping, I need to pay for packaging. And like I haven't seen people give cash back on that, but I've also not looked into business specific cards, right?
Yeah. So I'm waiting on the business EIN so that I can get the slash account, because that requires an EIN.
Dude, you could make crazy money if you opened a bank that was like on all product shipping costs, you get 1% cash back. You get so many business switching to you.
Yeah, yeah, it would or it's a nice idea, and
Yeah.
it's a cool their site is pretty interesting. They're essentially just like, we don't do all of these deals. We just do a cash back. We make transfers really cheap, so their transfer fees are like even lower than Wise, which is like super low already. I can move $1,000 for like $1.50. With them, I can move
Wise.
any amount of money almost for $1.
Wise is credit wise. Or-
Wise is another bank, international bank. So I
You've
have
worked with them before. I
yeah,
remember that.
that's who I'm working with
They're
right now.
purple. That's the color, right?
They are green.
Nah, I don't remember.
The purple one was
I Owl something.
Oh man, I do remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget. I'm not big.
Forget the name.
I'm not big with the banking stuff.
Yeah, I'm not either. I hate that I'm doing with it, but it is what it
You
is.
know more than me.
I wish I didn't.
This is oh man, I had an idea on the tip of my tongue and I lost it. It was something along the lines of I can't remember. Maybe it was something like there's an opportunity where Alex from okay, here it is. You remember? I remember. Um Comparing the cards that are like just straight up like we do 2% cash back, that's it. It's easy, right? Versus like Amex, I had to surf through 14 cards, each with a different combination of okay, well, this one you get 2% back
Yeah.
on travel, but you get $500 a month for gas. On this one, you get 6% back on travel, but it's not a number on gas, it's a percentage, but then you also get 3% back on dining. It's just too much, right? And Alex Ramosi has a quote, which is like, you're not overwhelming the customer with value, you're just overwhelming the customer. And that's what every credit card company feels like.
Yeah.
It's just overwhelming. I don't want to surf through 14 cards. So honestly,
For now, I did surf through them to an extent, but I was like, I more or less scanned because
right,
a vast majority of the offers were like air travel, fancy dining at specific locations.
right,
Gas would be nice,
Yeah.
yes, but like the gas, even at my highest spend level, didn't really cover. It didn't cover me in the other areas well enough for me to warrant switching.
right. Yeah, I feel like it would be better if instead of a company like Amex, for example, because I went through their 14 cards, instead of offering 14 cards, each with a different configuration, just list out every option. And then when you're applying for a card, you pick the options that you want, and then they tell you how much it's going to cost a month to have
That would be a really cool
that
idea too.
configurable card. Probably not as easy to track, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
the back end of
interesting.
banking, but from the customer perspective, I think it's easier to pick and choose exactly what you need
Yeah,
instead of fucking sifting through hundreds of cards. Because
true.
you're either sifting through hundreds of cards and not making a decision because you get fed up, or you're going with the flat out, like, it's just 2% back on everything, $20 a month. Like,
Yeah.
super simple, way overcomplicated,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just going the simple route because I'm just like,
That's
I just
preferred.
want
Yeah,
something simple.
exactly. I don't blame you at all.
But I dealt with that, and I'm also looking at opening a American Express personal card,
Mhm.
um, because they have a lot of good 0 APR deals, and
That's the one I just got.
yeah, I want if I can, I want to do a balance transfer from my personal to the 0% APR on the Amex. Because my current APR is like 25 or 28%. Yeah, I was looking at that one, the blue. Yeah.
Blue Cash Preferred.
Yeah.
And then I also have this one, which is my Walter Grumman travel card.
No, that's nice.
Yeah, I put all my Cabo
Our NASA travel card is our personal credit card that they
pay reimbursed.
reimburse most of the time.
It's gay as fuck. Yeah, let me make sure I didn't show any card numbers on that. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Um,
that's good. I hadn't considered that.
but
Oh,
what was I saying? Oh,
transferring
I'm
personal
I'm
balance.
trying to see if I could do a personal balance transfer.
So you're
Because I
taking
just keep paying it down, it fucking comes back up, and then I pay it down, it comes back up, and then I have additional business expenses, then I have this ad account shit, and it's like, just to keep up with all these payments
right.
is, like, so suffocating on top of, like, the ridiculous month-to-month interest rate if
Yep.
I don't completely pay it.
So Justin's coworker at Northrop.
Yeah,
Yeah, I won't say his
go for it.
because I don't know if
Yeah.
it's legal, but he has a list of like every company that has a 0% APR credit card available. There's no limit on how many credit cards you can have. It's just if your credit limit is low, if your credit score is too low, then you won't get approved. But you just wait 6 months and do it again. And so he'll have a 0% APR credit card for 18 months that he stacks up charges on, and he'll make his minimum monthly payments. But at the 12 out of 18 month mark, he'll go get another 0% APR credit card and then transfer everything over.
Yeah.
And just continue to roll it over. And he keeps the balance, regular. It's not like he is building crazy, like tens of thousands of dollars on this card that is just not paid off.
Yeah.
He still pays it off, but it's just a way that he can continue to build credit by opening up these additional lines of credit and not have to pay any
Yeah.
interest.
So I would have done the personal this week. The thing is I'm waiting until I get my EIN so that I can do the Slash account
Right.
first. Because although business credit and personal credit are different, they do reference your personal credit
Right.
to open business accounts. And I don't want to accept a American Express offer
Yeah.
and have a ding on my personal and then have that affect the offer I get from Slash.
You know what's crazy?
So
I haven't checked. So I got the Amex card like 2 weeks ago, or I applied for it, got approved. So they do I think they do a hard check on your credit when you're getting a new card. It's not a soft check.
when I believe when you accept, it's a hard check.
Right. So I got a hard check on my credit when I accepted that card. I have not gotten any email notifications from Credit Karma or Capital One or Amex saying, Mason, your credit has gone down. I
Hmm.
have gotten a lot of emails recently that say, Mason, your credit score has improved. So I haven't checked it. I don't know if it
Yeah.
went down, they didn't tell me, and now it's slowly creeping back up. But if it is, it's creeping back up at a like rate of knots because I keep getting these emails. I should
Yeah.
check my Credit Karma when we're between sessions or something.
Yeah, I thought mine would be tanked
Yeah.
because of like all the balance rollover I had.
Yeah.
I checked it last week. I was 797, which is
That's
pretty
awesome.
damn good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean decent for,
No, that's great. I was at like
mid
730.
20-year-old.
I was at like 730 something when I got the card, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's fine. I'll be okay." Even if I drop it into like 600s for a minute, but like I haven't gotten any emails that it's gone down at all. So
Yeah.
you might not have to. You might not have to. I'll check and
I
see.
don't know how credit score works. I wouldn't
neither.
figured. I don't.
But if you're looking at getting like the same kind of Amex card as I am, and I didn't get any like dip in the credit score, then you don't have to wait. So I'll check and then let
Yeah.
you know, and then you
I
can
was
do
looking at
faster.
the blue out of all the bunch for the personal, but that was honestly about my business update. It was a bunch of junk and some content, and that's about it. Dealing with that stuff.
So the account that you got replaced and you're running ads on now. Last week, I think you said that it's doing similar numbers to what it was doing before, right?
Correct.
So is it still doing that 2 weeks on now?
It was until they shut the account. I forgot to mention this. It was until they shut the account off because it ran out of USD.
Because they converted it all to euros?
Right, and here's the real kicker
That's
too.
retarded, dude.
Here's the real kicker.
You were
They didn't-
spending that money while when they moved it over.
This is the real kicker though. It shut off, but I know for a fact there's still USD in that account
How?
because I've done the calculation for how much that account has spent and how much I have sent them,
Right.
and I know the total expenditures
Mm.
overall, and I know that that account was shut off prior to it running out of USD.
And you can't see into that account. They
No,
because
it's fine.
they're ad agency.
Right. So I forgot to mention. Additionally, they shut off with my account after a couple days when it ran out of doing this transfer. Even though I know there should have been still some money left in there.
Right.
So that was fiasco. I'm hoping to get it done and dusted this week. I'm hoping to get the EIN back so I can, try another route.
But even when you switch to this other guy, you're still gonna have to try to get your money back from the euros thing, right? 'Cause
I'm
you
just
can't
gonna try
burn
and burn it, spend it there through that out.
But even if you do spend the euros, it's like they still have your money, a chunk of it hidden somewhere, right? That
Oh yeah,
you owed that money,
yeah, that I want to know where it's at.
right?
wanna
So
know.
you've got to find it in any case,
Right.
which blows.
Yeah,
But so when did they transfer the euros from USD to euros, and how many days have you been dealing?
Tuesday night while I was sleeping, so around
Okay.
4 a.m.
So like
and
5 days.
it's been 5 days.
So, and there's not been a ton of progress made because they're not
None,
playing
none.
ball.
I mean, there's been no progress. They transferred the money and nothing has changed since that point. I mean, they've talked in the chat, but like nothing has actually concretely changed. I just started
So-
spending on the Euro account. I was like, I'm not waiting anymore to get my ads up and running. I've already had this on a halt for 2 days because the accounts were shut off. I'm gonna start spending. I'm just gonna run that account down. And if I don't get my 200 USD or whatever it is back in some form or another, I'm just never gonna work with you guys again. And I'm gonna, write a glowing review about your company. And then when I do make it big, I'll make sure to keep you in mind to never also work with again. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, you know what? I've been very patient with the account lockups.
Right.
I've been extremely kind. I've always paid my shit on time. I've
Right.
never shorted you guys anything. I've always been extremely polite. You have beaten me around the bush for 2.5 weeks now
Right.
with this out account shit. I'm over it.
Right.
Fix my shit. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I've been patient.
You're stopping me from doing my business,
Yes.
and you're
And you're
charging me
wasting my money
$200.
because every
Right.
time I have to get one of these friggin' accounts up, I gotta spend on it to warm it up too. It's not gonna just perform right out of the box immediately,
Right.
right? So this is part of my problem. I have business expenses. I have personal expenses that are hitting my APR. And then I have this ad account shit where I have to keep warming up accounts that get locked up. And then on top of that, they transfer money without my permission and then lose hundreds.
Right.
I'm like, bruh, like, this isn't that complicated.
Right.
I send you some amount of money. It's your job to manage it. If I don't give you permission to manage it or change it, don't manage it or change it.
Do you want
It's
to put
not
the
hard.
Do you want to put the company on blast to both?
No,
all
I
listeners?
don't, because they don't deserve airtime. Um,
That's fair.
but yeah, it's
I'm still working on the whole hatred ideology from last week, so I'll put Paris Baguette in Orlando on blast because that French motherfucker was talking to customers while I was waiting in line for like fucking 10 minutes. They were just shooting the
The
shit.
French
Their
are
transaction
different,
was
man.
over. I fucking hate them. They did. Still working on it. The woman who eventually like was like, "Oh, I can take next in line." She came in from the back. She was an American and she knew what the customer service really was.
No.
And she's the only reason I didn't leave a review for that place. Anyways.
But that's all I have for my business update. Do you
Bummer.
wanna? Yeah, bummer. Bummer is right. It really
Well, it's a bummer because it's all out of your control. It's not like you fucked up and you have a lesson to learn from. It's like you're getting your dick twisted. And
Here's the thing. It could be in my control. I could just jump to different ad agencies all the time and open up new accounts constantly and like throw myself at this problem from a rush mentality and be a real ass and try to get my money back. The problem is like I literally do not have the financial bandwidth to do that.
Mhm.
I cannot keep opening monthly subscriptions or sending hundreds of dollars to different agencies and
Right.
spending on new accounts all the time. I literally do not have the money in my account.
Mhm.
I can't even like I don't even know how I'm gonna pay like the balance I have.
Right.
Like, that's why I'm looking at all this shit, and I'm like, do I enjoy it? No, absolutely not. Is it fun? Does it make me happy? No, it really fucking doesn't make me happy. But it's like, this is the reality of business sometimes. Sometimes it's super challenging. You're gonna run into issues. You're gonna struggle, and like that's part of the game. And so I'm continuing to push through it. And then like the thing that sucks is like it could be in my control where I could solve it, but like I could sell off a bunch of shit and, really quick on Facebook Marketplace for super cheap and then just like throw money at the problem. Like I could, but like it's like within reason, how can I tackle this?
Right.
And like I'm trying to do that because I'm not trying to like just completely swamp and burn myself out over like a week worth of issues.
Right.
Right. But it definitely is frustrating when it feels like there's a new set every week. And I'm like, oh my God.
You know what's super interesting is as you were talking about that, I was building in my head. I was like, okay, so you have a personal credit card and a business credit card, and they both have APR building, and it's difficult to pay off either because you had
The business doesn't have APR building.
that's a 0%.
Yeah.
But you're trying to transfer your personal
Over to a different personal that has zero.
different personal that also has 0. Okay, got
Yeah.
it. So the business has 0 for like a year.
Yes.
Got it. So that's not a huge issue because you can make or defer or make minimum payments on that. My first thought was, how do you pay those things down? And then I was like, well, you could sell the BMW. And then I was like, well, you could pull from your 401k. And then I was like, you could take a loan from your 401k and then pay it back over time. And then I
wrote their loans this week.
I was thinking about other things.
Yeah.
And then I had this thought. There's a 4-hour like how to be the best salesman ever seminar from Hormozy that I'm just watching as many times through as I can. I watch it during breakfast every day at work. And there's a part in there where he talks about I think it's a book called Shoe Dog, which is the story of Nike and how Nike started.
Oh yeah.
At one point, the founder had completely run out of money to the point that he couldn't pay for shipments or employees or anything. Like he had exactly 0 money. And he went to the bank and he was like, I need money. And they were like, no. And so he went to the people that he was buying from and he was like, hey, can I defer payment for like a month? And they were like, no. And so he got creative and he went to his vendors. So the people that he was giving the shoes to go sell. And he was like, I need you guys to pay my bankroll this month. And they were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we buy shoes from you. And he was like, yeah, I just need you to do it this month. And he made it work and he convinced them to pay for it. Right. But Hormozy was like, who here He was like, raise your
You're
hand.
not out of business until there's locks on your doors, and that's the
Yeah.
mentality I'm going in.
So he had everyone in the audience raise their hand. He was like, who here has had rent come up or an unexpected bill that they couldn't afford? And like everyone raised their hand.
Mm.
And he was like, who here failed to make that payment? And like a ton of hands went down. He was like, so you all figured it out, right? He was like, isn't
Yeah.
it so interesting how you can be super resourceful when you're paying other people, but not when you need to pay yourself? And I was like, "Oh, okay. So probably selling the BMW and like borrowing from the 401k maybe isn't the best option. There's probably something else that I'm just not thinking of to get
Yeah.
balance."
Well, it is funny that you mentioned that because that is something I'm heavily considering, and that's part of my life to update actually has to do with that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I have the best approach to this problem. The business side of my approach on the business end is get a 0% personal APR
Yeah.
card, and work for the balances I can. Try to keep my expenditures low,
Hmm.
and I didn't add this in during my spiel, but continuing to work overtime at work.
How much overtime are you doing?
It varies. I really hate doing overtime because it cuts into
Bus-
my business stuff. I try to pick up at least like 5 hours a week, at least. Um,
Are you close to a promotion? Can you push for that with the stuff you've been doing?
I'll be up for a promotion in October.
But you want to be gone by then.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's almost not worth it.
Because part of my life update is that work is just absolutely intolerable. It's like
Okay.
it is so it is so awful to be there.
Let's keep going. We'll get to the
But
life update.
yeah, yeah. So part of my work/life update, work. I just it, it wears on me in a linear way. Where when I started out, it wore on me because I hated being there.
Yeah.
But every day that I'm there, that pain gets stacked up on like a small linear curve. And so like today, the next day's pain's a little bit more, but the previous days is stacked on it. And then it just adds and adds and adds. And so it's like the longer I've been there, the more I'm like, I despise working here so much. I really do.
Yeah.
Um, and because I can't apply myself effectively without pissing a bunch of people off and them telling me that I'm out of my bounds or not doing my job properly or whatever. And then if I shut up and I just do, everything is so illogical and so hard for me to understand why that I just feel demoralized and I'm just like a robot on the floor just doing what Joe Schmo says. And so that's been really, really quite painful to go through, which is part of the reason why I hate overtime so much. I actually enjoyed overtime when I was working for the paper kosher team because I enjoyed the work and I felt like I could kind of be like my own little boss and kind of like run around, which I liked. The back in my position, it's nothing like that, and it's just
This is back to the hydraulics position, the one
yeah, it's
before?
been that way for a couple months, but it's just been
Right.
harder and harder
Not
to
fulfilling.
go through. Yeah, yeah. So, um, trying to do that overtime, but part of the way I'm tackling this finance side of things too is one of the things I did this weekend was I went through all my car records and I organized them all, printed out all my invoices, got all my written invoices up to date, put them in all the folders, did all that. That was yesterday. I spent 4 hours ish doing that, just organizing, cleaning up. Additionally, when you drove by my house, the reason I wasn't home was I was getting parts. So I went over to BMW and I called AutoZone and they were like, we could get you a lead acid battery for $225. And then I called BMW and they're like, with your deal through Autobahn, we can get you a brand new AGM for $275. And I was like, I'll do the AGM for rare because it, if I go to sell the car, having an OEM BMW battery in the car that I can get a deal on that's almost equivalent in price to a cheap ass Duralast that looks like I don't care about the car, I see is valuable. Like if I pop open the battery compartment and I see a brand new OEM BMW battery, I'm like, okay, cool.
Right.
If I pop the battery compartment open and it's a like mid-level Duralast
Right.
that I almost would have paid the same money for, like it shows me like, okay, how much does this person really care? So got my OEM battery. I went to Mazda. I ordered my coil packs. Funny enough, the coil packs were more expensive than the battery.
So how many do you have? 2 or 4?
85 for the coil packs on the Miata.
2 or 4?
4, but they come in blocks of 2, so it's 2 and 2.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah, so
That's wild.
and that's with a small deal too.
Yeah.
I think they're over like $320 or $330 retail.
Wow.
Very expensive. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, that's like the one thing that's really expensive on the Miata. Is the
Right.
coil packs.
Right. But reliable for the most part.
No, it's actually really funny. It's one of the more
Is it?
expensive components, and it's one of the failure points of the Miata. Our
Interesting.
coil pack.
Are there aftermarket ones that are better than OEM?
They're worse.
They're worse?
They're worse.
What the fuck? That's
No.
wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. I think honestly, I think it's probably a factor of what voltage load is coming in there and how the wiring harness is set up, because all that wiring harness technology is from the 80s, and they kind of updated it through the NB Miata a little bit and
Right.
revised it. But with the NA, it was still very
Old.
kind of older tech, and they were kind of they were a couple of bugs
Right.
and stuff like that. And so I think that's part of the reason the coil packs go bad, is because they're built heavy duty, but then the wiring doesn't really support the consistency that would be required.
Yeah.
That's my theory. I have no real evidence to back that up other than just like my instinct and what I've seen on other stuff related to it. But anyways, I got coil packs for the Miata, and I got a brand new battery for the BMW. The BMW needed a battery. I was sick and tired of jumping it. I couldn't leave the car for 20 minutes without needing to jump it.
Really?
Yeah.
The battery was just dying. It's not the dash cam thing anymore.
Post.
Got it.
Yeah. If I even like parking for gas, if I shut the car off, when I go to start it back up 5-10 minutes later, I need to jump it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's bad.
So I was like, I'm over this. I keep having to charge jump packs. I'm wearing out my packs. Like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
So I went and just got a real battery with a warranty. And I was like, great. So did that, put that in, drove the car here, started in the morning. I was so happy. I was like, oh
Nice.
my God, like I actually enjoy not having to jump it every time. But
This is what having 2 cars is supposed to feel like.
yeah, seriously. So I did that, and then additionally, I'm considering selling the BMW heavily for sure. I met a guy at BMW. I wasn't in the Beamer, but he started talking to me, and I told him I had a E39 530, and he was interested in buying it. Funny enough, he was a little bit of an interesting dude. He kind of he weirded me out in some ways. So
But if he has cash and is willing to pay your price,
yeah,
we could also do the cars and bits thing again.
yeah. So
That went well.
I'm playing with my options. I haven't thought about it too much, but what I have done is a new door lock for the right rear for that car is almost $1,000. So I did not buy a new door lock.
Yeah.
I bought a verified used one for $50.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If it's functional, no one will question it when they go to buy their car.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll have invoicing for it. I don't really care.
Right.
One of the buttons is broken on the HVAC, so I ordered a new button. It was $10.
Yeah.
Did that, get out of the way, make it actually function.
Right.
Ordered new seat cables. I got a
Seat cable.
so the seats, the way they're adjusted, they have 2 motors. They have a motor for the bottom that moves, and then they have a motor for the back that moves.
Okay.
And so those motors have cables that then tie into transmission gear drives.
Okay.
So those cables will shrink over time. And the previous owner, there's a trick you can do where you can like snip the ends a little bit and kind of flex them and get them to work. The previous owner already did that, and then I tried to do it a little bit more to get away with it without buying new cables. And like, it did technically work, but it's like really 50-50. It's like, this is kind of a shoddy job, and like sometimes it doesn't quite work right.
Right.
And so I was just like, new cables, driver's side and passenger side.
Yeah.
Just swap them in, do it right, get out of my way. And then that's a big thing on the E39 forums is like, oh, does it have seat tilt? Have you dealt with seat tilt? Because when those cables go bad, it will cause the seats to adjust unevenly, and it'll cause them to tilt.
Got it.
So I was like, okay, I'll get the seat tilt dealt with for $120.
Right.
Brand new cables, OEM, but I got them through World Pack, so I got a deal on them.
Right.
Ordered seat cables. Additionally to the battery, I already own front forward oil control arms, which need to be done. The tires are relatively new, and a few other things I've already done. I already own front pads, rotors, and the sensor wire. I have the window regulator, and I have a used seatbelt buckle for the driver's side that I'm going to use to replace the one that has a fault in it right now. And that one I bought on eBay, verified used, because I'm not going to spend $250 on a fucking seatbelt buckle from BMW. Especially one that came out of a low mileage car that's, verified.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll be doing that work on the BMW this weekend because it's a long weekend with the Monday. So that's my plan for the Beamer.
Tomorrow or like this upcoming weekend?
Well, tomorrow is not a holiday, I don't think. Is it?
I have no idea. I don't get a holiday
Oh.
or whatever's happening in general. So is it this upcoming weekend? Like a week from now?
Yeah. A
Okay,
week from
got
now, essentially. Yeah. And then I'll be looking to do a ABS module rebuild with module masters on the BMW after I get the Miata sorted.
The coil packs and stuff?
The coil packs and the Miata is also coming up in about 500 miles to the service interval where it's going to need timing belt, idler, tensioner, timing, or water pump. I will probably do the front crank seal again because it's got a little bit of a leap to it while I'm right there. And that car's also going to need transmission fluid, differential fluid, and power steering fluid, along with some other small.
Sell the BMW to fund the Miata.
The problem is that I can't fund the Miata until I sell the BMW. Not really.
And then you're without.
Or I work a ton of overtime and try to keep both. That's kind of the predicament I'm in. It's because I can't afford to put down another $1,500 for the Miata. I mean, I can, but it would just be so stupid. Like, I would just put $5,000 on a fucking credit card with 28% APR. So this is my
or 0%.
Right. So those are the ideas I'm playing with. My thinking was, okay, what's first step? First step is get the EIN so I can get the slash account. After I get the slash account with the best credit score I possibly can, they'll get me the best deal I possibly can get on my most important account. Cool. I know I can get a personal 0% APR credit card somewhere for sure, even if my credit takes a slight hit with the slash account.
Yeah.
So I'll do the personal card after, transfer the balance over. While I'm doing that, I will fix the BMW so that it has the potential to be sold if I need to sell it. So I'll get it to a point where I feel as though the car is sellable.
Right.
So that's what I'll do with the Beamer. Then I'll make an assessment for there based on finances and go, okay, do I sell the BMW in order to fund the Miata repairs as well as some of the business expenses and personal expenses I have?
Right.
Or do I try to keep both together and work through it? But regardless if I keep or sell the Beamer, there's some work that needs to be done at this point. So that has to get done. Regardless of what I choose to do, I need to get the slash account sorted out. So that I have to do. And regardless, I should get a 0% personal APR credit card. So that I'll do first. So I'm just hitting my okay, these things have to happen regardless. I'm just going to hit them. So
yeah. And by the time the work is done on the BMW, the ad accounts might be running and making money again. And then you don't have to sell the BMW.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff up in the air, a lot of different factors. So it's very hard for me to plan months out.
Right.
But what I can do is plan a month out and address the issues that I know will cause a problem down the line.
Right. It's kind of like, what can I do today as insurance just in case things don't get better in 3 months?
Exactly.
And you could also long-term list the BMW where you list it for a crazy high price and then just see if you get an offer.
Yeah.
Without the intent to sell. And then ultimately, if you are like, oh, fuck, I really need the money, then you could drop it down to something reasonable. But if someone came up to you after doing the work, the day you finished doing the work, and they were like, dude, I'll pay 10 grand for that, right? Probably just get it gone.
Yeah.
It's a screaming deal. But, if you have it listed for 10 grand for 2 months and then things get really tight, you can drop it to 8 and then, see if you can find a buyer.
Yeah. So I'm going to work that stuff as best I can. And try to just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Miata will need timing belt, water pump, associated seals and pulleys, transmission fluid, differential fluid, power steering fluid, and potentially front tires.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff on that car. And some of the stuff I have on the shelf, I don't have everything on the shelf. I'm guessing it will cost me at minimum, if I hunt for deals, probably $700 or $800. And so something I'm trying to do right now, which I spent last night doing. And I hate doing this, but I get into the philosophy on it a little bit, but I listed up some odds and ends on Facebook Marketplace that I have that I don't use.
What are odds and ends?
Someone gave me some drums and cymbals.
Okay.
It's an incomplete set. I'm not going to use them. Might
Oh,
as well make
like
them
a
go away.
like a garage sale kind of thing.
Yeah,
Stuff you don't use.
correct. Yeah. Hydraulic press I bought, thought I'd use it because I didn't know if like how the Autobahn situation was gonna go or if I was gonna keep a key or whatever. Autobahn's been really awesome.
Mhm.
And so I'm selling the press that I bought
Yeah.
because I have only maybe used it once. And in the case I used it once, I think I still borrowed the plates from Autobahn.
Right.
So it's like,
Just take everything out of on.
yeah, exactly. So that's up. And then I also um I'm probably gonna list some of the Lego sets unopened that I have.
Mhm.
Um, it sucks because I have like the big 911,
Mhm.
and I really like that, and I wanted to build it, but I've had it for like 3 years now,
Mhm.
and I've never built it. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, I do really want to build this, and I do really like the set. Um, but I was thinking, I was like, okay, if I'm sitting in the same spot 2 years from now, and the reason I'm sitting in the same spot 2 years from now was because I held on to something that I really didn't need, and I
Mhm.
could have made that sale and gotten myself a little bit ahead. How would I feel about myself then?
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'd probably feel pretty damn shitty about myself if that was the case. So I was like, okay, I'll make the, you know, sad decision and just like sell the stuff that I like. And it's like
Right.
not, on paper, it's like, oh, like Sander, like this is retarded. Like just sell the Lego set. But like it sucks because it's like I associate the toy cars in my life with like the real cars I could have one day.
Right.
And so I like want this trajectory of like me having the little one to the big one.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just like kind of hard to get rid of the little ones
Right.
in pursuit of the big one from like a story arc perspective,
Yeah.
right? In my mind. But like at the same time, it's like I gotta balance what I can and can't do. So
Well, and with Lego sets, it's like what's interesting about Lego sets is that there's only a certain number manufactured, and every day someone opens up a sealed one, the number of sealed ones decreases.
yeah.
So they go up in value, right? So hanging on to it is an awesome investment if you're never going to build it or have the intent to sell it. So like I have a couple $1,000s in unsealed or in sealed in box Lego sets in the storage unit, but I know that eventually I'll probably gonna open them up and build them. So I try not to look at that. Like I don't log that in my net worth when I
Oh
calculate it
yeah.
each month because I'm like, okay, yeah, technically there's value in that box, but I'm not gonna sell those sets. So kind of like money spent, right?
Yeah.
Not money invested. There are a few that I'm not gonna like I would sell in the future, but I'm just gonna wait for them to go up in value.
Yeah, the ones that I'm also considering listing is I have some very valuable Hot Wheels.
Mhm.
Which like in part sucks because it took me, much digging and many connections to get them.
How much is
Uh,
that Lego Porsche, the white one? That was 200 new.
it was 200 new. I saw it selling for like 120 to 150. I was surprised. I
Really?
thought it'd be more. Unboxed. Or sorry, a box
Box?
sealed. 120,
Interesting.
150.
So I use Brickset to track
Yeah.
my collection and stuff. I would be willing to pay you the current new sealed in box value on Brickset and then keep it with my other sealed in box sets. And then
Yeah.
when you have the money to buy it back, I'll sell it to you for what that current Brickset value is
That
then.
works for me.
So you'll
Happy
probably
with
have to
that.
pay more down the line
Yeah.
based on whatever the Brickset value is. But you get to keep that set
Yeah.
on
I'd
hold.
be down with that.
I can do that.
So we could coordinate that. I would appreciate that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I'm selling that one, and then I've got a couple other odds and ends that I'm like not a huge fan of, but I could easily get rid of.
Right.
And so I'll list those. The only one that like the Porsche stuff is like the Porsche stuff and the Ferrari stuff is like the only stuff that like I really want to try and keep if I can because like those are like my favorites of the bunch.
Right.
A couple things I am considering selling is I have a limited edition Magnus Walker Porsche
Mm-hmm.
with the actual Magnus Walker figurine in the box.
Mm-hmm.
That sealed goes for 350.
Okay.
It's one individual Hot Wheel. Um, and I also have a set of tarmac RWB Porsches completely sealed. It's a set of 4, and those go for $80 a pop.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have some and that's like
600
that's a
bucks.
small sliver of the volume of valuable stuff I have.
Right.
So I'm just kind of looking at ballpark like what I'm trying to hit. What's the best ROI on my time? I don't want to because I want to sell the valuable stuff on eBay because I can get more.
Right.
My thinking is that if I'm in a pinch, I can do another one of the Hot Wheels sale events at KPS Hobbies in Melbourne.
Right.
And I can bring all my stuff and just list it out for essentially retail prices.
Yeah, just
Because most people will try to get like 100% or 200% above retail or whatever. If I just list it at retail, all of it, I could probably get rid of a large volume relatively quickly.
right.
And so that's kind of what I'm pointing to right now and thinking about. If I get into that pinch, I can do that. But I'm just trying to look at the heavy hitters right now, and get some of the stuff on Facebook Marketplace sold if I can. Sell off, the easy stuff that's to sell just to get some money back
Right.
in order to like even help pay for like the battery and fucking coil packs I had to buy this weekend.
Right.
So, just doing that, it is what it is. But and then trying to cut other expenses out of my life and whatever. So
Yeah.
that was pretty much my entire business and life update, was just like figuring out finances and dealing with finance problems.
Right.
That was essentially my entire week. It was
Awesome.
extremely fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you had a good time doing.
Thanks. But what you got for
I feel really bad because I have a lot of good news. So it's gonna be a
No, I mean, that's
total
great.
stark contrast. What's going on?
I'll absorb off the
good vibes?
good vibes
Yeah.
from you and bring some light into my panic.
Well, what's good for one of us is good for both of us, right?
Yeah.
So like the Lego Porsche thing is a great example, right?
Sure.
Okay, so starting with the business update. On Monday, I officially signed with Blue Marlin Real Estate, and I waited until Tuesday night to let Carrie with Remax Elite to let her know that I wasn't going with Remax because I didn't know anything about the onboarding process. I didn't know if they wanted me to do something special or if I had to put a shitload of money down. I didn't know. And so I was like, I don't want to burn that bridge until I like am locked in with Blue Marlin. But
Right.
signed the paperwork Monday. Everything was great. So I've got my Blue Marlin shirt on
Oh, look at
underneath
that.
this.
Nice.
I got this and then a polo shirt the other day.
I got a future Mason and Sandra Deborah shirt. About racing. That's sick.
This is the first time I've bought a t-shirt in years because when we started going to the Rolex, I would just collect all the free shirts from that.
Oh yeah.
So that's it's like all Rolex shirts and then cool strike shirts from work that I bought.
Yeah.
But the onboarding email that I got from the Blue Marlin sales manager is like fucking awesome. I remember when Grace started at Remax, it was kind of like, hey, here are the forms that you have to fill out, and then here's the like, the different boards that you need to be a part of.
Yeah.
And then like go do real estate. And so I was kind of expecting the same thing with Blue Marlin, but that wasn't the case at all. I got like a Mason and Sanders style email with like a shitload of links, a shitload of training videos, clear actionable steps that they're going to follow up with you on and stuff like that. And there's an onboarding video that walks you through the email like in real time, which is cool. So I started off by completing as much of the onboarding stuff as I could. I scheduled headshots for Tuesday. I scheduled my onboarding meeting in person for the Friday a few days ago. They use a different document tool than Remax does. And what I'm starting to learn is that the difference between Remax and Blue Marlin, a lot of it is just the age of the tools that they use. A lot of the Remax stuff is like, oh, a friend of mine I know built this tool in the late 90s, and so we use it because it's good. And Blue Marlin says, oh, there's the tool that was developed like 5 years ago that everybody loves, and we're using this now. So it's just like slightly more modernized, but not so new. It's not like there's an app for that type stuff where it's so new that it has hurdles. It's like tried and tested new.
It's not like the ChatGPT integrated, sales associate auto email responder.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I made an account with that, and it's called Dotloop. That's the document website compared to app files that Grace uses. And Dotloop has an app that goes on your phone, and it's a website that you can access on your computer. So you can do everything from your phone or computer. Grace has to have her computer with her to use app files, or you have to log into the website like in Safari or Google on your phone. And I prefer the app. So Dotloop was really straightforward. I figured out on Tuesday, so the day after I officially signed with Blue Marlin, I figured out my Dotloop account, and I told my sales manager, I was like, hey man, his name's I was like, hey I closed on my first property on Friday. My name isn't on any documentation because I haven't had a brokerage until now. What do I do? How do I get credit for this? And he was like, the easiest way we can probably do this is write up a referral agreement. So essentially, I found this lead from Northrop Grumman, which is true. I referred him to Grace to act as a real estate agent, which is true. And so then I get credit. Usually the split is like I'll get 25% of Grace's commission. But since Grace and I, I was closely involved with this deal, we just did 50-50. So I wrote up all the referral agreement documentation. And what's cool about Dotloop is that when you make, they call it a loop, but essentially think of it as like a file. When you make a file for a client, you can just select what type of transaction is happening. So I picked referral, and then it auto-populates the documents that you need. You don't have to go digging and finding the documents and like making sure that you have everything. It's automated. So it gave me the documents that I need for the referral to fill out and then send out to get signed. Super easy process. I really enjoyed it. And then we went to a city council meeting. I can't quite remember why I have this written down. What did I do at the city council meeting that was related to real estate? Maybe nothing. I have no idea.
Maybe just learn about the area and what's going on.
Well, that's why I go, but I don't know why I wrote it down because nothing interesting happened this week. There was a city council meeting. I went. I don't know. In any case, I got my membership with the Space Coast Association of Realtors. So I have to take like a 2-hour online course, and then I take that certificate to a full day orientation where you go through the ethics training to become a realtor. But that's not required to close on the sale that is scheduled to happen on Friday. So I got that set up, but I haven't actually executed on it because I don't have a full day that I want to do this. And their soonest training that I can do is in June, so there's no rush. And then I synced my Google Calendar with Grace's. You can share your Google Calendar with other people, but I have 5 different calendars that I use for myself. So like one is the gym, one is work, one is personal events, one is other events, one is birthdays, right? And so I can toggle between those and turn them off or on if it gets too cluttered. So I had to share all 5 with Grace. So if I ever have to share my email or my calendar with someone else, it's gonna be a pain in the ass. But in any case, that was my like Blue Marlin orientation onboarding style thing. So I went and I did my onboarding appointment Friday morning, and that went super smooth. Introduced me to everybody there. Oh, on Thursday they opened a new office in Indy Atlantic, so I went to the opening there. I met a cool real estate agent named Tristan who's also into racing. He's the guy who knows Mark Pylock from the American Muscle Car Museum. He used to race shifter carts. He used to race Formula 500 cars. But he had a heart condition, which is the same heart condition that my brother had, where one of the valves in his heart was letting blood back through, kind of like a blown PCV valve. And he got the same surgery that my brother got, but my brother was allowed to go on and be a pilot. And then this guy ran out of sponsorship funding, couldn't fund his racing anymore. So he moved to the States and got his real estate license. But what I forgot to mention the other day is he's also a manager at AutoZone, and he only works like 2 days a week, but he gets 40% off on everything. So
that's nice.
easy way to get cheap brake clean.
True.
And he's a cool dude. And he watches Formula One. So I texted him during the race this morning.
Cool.
But that was nice. And then I did my onboarding meeting on Friday morning, which went well. Introduced me to everybody. They have an entire staff dedicated to specific departments. So like there's a whole ass like woman who only runs the social media accounts. All she does all day is just like crank out content for the social media. She's dope. She's super cool. I'm excited to start working with her. But she got me set up with all of the Blue Marlin like Instagram and Facebook accounts and stuff like that. And she had me follow everyone and whatever. I don't know. It was good. It was good. It was a good onboarding meeting. I got a lot of information, and I feel like I can go talk to the brokers or the sales manager with like any questions that I have. And I've already had to several times. The day that I was writing out the referral agreement, I was working with Tyler because Tyler was teaching me how to work the document setup, because I was like, hey, I kind of have to get this signed right now or I'm not going to be on this contract by closing. And Tyler wasn't sure about something, and he was like, yeah, you should ask Ohm tomorrow because it's like 8 o'clock at night and Ohm's not going to respond to you. And I was like, the other night he responded to me past 8 o'clock. And Tyler was like, he doesn't do that. And I was like, I think he does. So I sent him a message, and Tyler was in the middle of telling me like, oh yeah, Ohm Ohm is awesome, and he'll respond to you during business hours really, really well. But if it's outside of business hours, don't expect a response right away. And in the middle of saying that, Ohm texted me back like right away.
How
He was
fun.
like, he was like, "Oh, must like you," and I was like, "I don't know, but I'm happy to be getting this response." Right. Um, so off to a great start with him.
Good.
There's no annual or desk fees with Blue Marlin, so I only owe them money at closing, which is ironic because the only money I pay them, I actually never see. They just take it off the top, right?
Yep.
Kind of like the taxes at Northrop Grumman, where I
Yeah.
never make that money. They just take it, they withhold it, and then they pay it, right? So none of my income is withheld with Blue Marlin, but I also don't pay them any desk fees or anything. They just take a higher commission split off the top. Um, so the onboarding stuff is going really well. The next steps that I have to do are get the headshots done on Tuesday, update all my personal social media accounts and stuff like that, and then start to get into the training videos, which I've already started to do. So I've already learned how to use the Brevard County property appraiser's website to learn more about um, uh, tax history of homes. I learned how to use IMAP in the MLS and the MLS, which is pretty cool because you can go around kind of like imagine Google Earth, but you can click on a house and then see who owns it, how long they've owned it for, what they paid for, what it's currently valued at, what its tax history is, like everything. So when I go door knocking, I can literally park in front of someone's house, click the button on IMAP, see what they bought the house for when, what it's valued at now, etc., and then go up to the door and be like, "Hi, you must be John," because I already know who owns the house, right? Which is super cool. Then I learned how to use their, they prefer Dockside Title as their title company, and they have a net sheet calculator, which is essentially approximating how much a seller or buyer is going to have to pay in closing costs,
Okay.
which is important because closing costs can total like ten to $20,000 depending on the property, right? So,
Yeah.
and that has to be paid at closing. So it's like you have to have all the money for a down payment and all the money for closing costs. And closing costs vary property to property, varies deal to deal, because sometimes sellers will pay for stuff, sometimes buyers can negotiate for the sellers to pay for more.
Yeah.
And ultimately, a seller wants to know, hey, I have a mortgage on this house. I don't own it outright. I'm selling it for X amount of money. I'm going to have to pay X amount in closing costs. I'm going to have to pay X amount to real estate agents. How much money do I actually walk away with at the end of the day? And Dockside Title has a tool where you just input all the information and then it spits out a I think it's a rough estimate, but I would say it's a pretty reliable estimate of what closing costs are gonna look like, which is super cool. So moving forward, I'm super stoked to get to know how to work all of the different tools at my disposal. And not just the tools, but the people too. I totally forgot. They have a guy named Jared who's the on-site videographer. So if
Mhm.
you want like any promotional content made, any like, hi, I'm a new real estate agent with Blue Marlin, et cetera, for your social media, he'll film that for you.
Oh, cool.
If you have a house that you're listing for sale, they have an offsite videographer that will go take photos and drone videos and stuff for you. You can do a listing walkthrough with them and they'll do all the editing and stuff. They're fucking awesome. And I'm super excited to get to know everyone. Unfortunately, I scheduled my onboarding meeting for 9 a.m. on Friday, and there were not a ton of people in the office, so I didn't get to meet everybody, but I'm still
Yeah.
excited. I got to walk through their merch room, and I bought this shirt and a collared shirt and then washed them to make sure that they didn't shrink, but they both fit great. Colors look awesome, so I'm super stoked.
Cool.
So that's my like, kind of office side of things. I'm trying to burn through the onboarding as quick as I can because I want to get to the actual like selling side of things now that I'm legally allowed to. But here's a rundown of how closing happened this week. It's a doozy. So if you'll recall, we're closing on this property. There are a few repairs that need to be done in order for the house to be insurable. In order for lending to happen, the house has to be insurable, right? So repairs were scheduled to be done in mid-May, and then they got pushed to late May, and then they got pulled back to mid-May again, right? Which is the whole reason I had to get a brokerage is because we're closing quicker than I thought we were. So the repairs were successfully completed on Tuesday this week, right? Tuesday afternoon or maybe Wednesday morning, I can't remember. The county appraiser came out and cleared us for closing. So they said the repairs have been done properly. The sellers have fulfilled their whatever. The house is in good condition to sell. All the documents are accurate. Thursday afternoon, we go do what's called the final walkthrough, which is where you take the buyer through the house one last time to make sure that the sellers didn't like disrupt anything that we weren't anticipating, right? So if they say that they're going to sell the house fully furnished, you show up and all the furniture's gone, that's a big deal. If you show up and, they ripped I don't know, the kitchen sink out because they really like that kitchen sink. That's a problem. Did the final walkthrough. Everything went well. New roof on the external garage looks great. New electrical panel looks great. There's copper wiring on the water heater now. There's no damage anywhere. They took a couple small pieces of furniture, but it was like PVC furniture, so like no big deal. Everything went well. Our client's super excited, right? Thursday afternoon. Awesome. All we have to do Friday is get the inspector to come out Friday morning to verify that everything is good because his inspection report is what the insurance companies are going to look at.
Yeah.
And currently his report says that there's repairs that need to be done. So he'll come back out Friday morning. He'll take a look at everything. He'll update his report to say everything's good. Then we close at 3:30 in the afternoon on Friday. Everyone's hunky dory. We have a fun weekend, right? So I go to my 9 a.m. onboarding meeting with Blue Marlin. I get in the car at 10 a.m. after my onboard meeting with Blue Marlin to drive to work. And Grace texts me and says, "Hey, can you call me? We have problems." Awesome. So I call her. She says, "Hey, Levi, our inspector, went out to the property, and he said that the new roof looks good, but the plumber didn't do one of the pipes that he needs to do on the water heater. Also, the electrical panel is double tapped or something that I don't understand. I don't understand anything about electricity, so that one doesn't make sense to me." And I was like, "Fuck, okay. Have you talked to anybody about this?" And she was like, "Yeah, I talked to a listing agent called Bob. Like, I've already talked to everyone. Here's the current status. The plumber can't come out until Tuesday to fix his shit, but the plumber thinks that it's up to code. He doesn't think that we have to replace that third pipe. And then the electrician, the listing agent is still trying to get in contact with." And I'm like, "Fuck, okay, so we're going to probably have to push closing." That's a problem because I bought a Lego set and cleared Monday to take off work so that I could enjoy my weekend by taking like a little mini vacation. Um, and I bought a pulled pork to make over the weekend too. Grace bought stuff to make chocolate chip cookies. Like I have this structured to be like a 3-day vacation from stuff that I can like refresh to hit the ground running when I onboard with Blue Marlin. And now that's all going to get fucked shit. So I'm like, all right, well, let's just see what we can do, right? Like, see if the listing agent can get the plumber to come out sooner. See if he can find like a secret spot in the city code that says that we don't actually have to replace the pipe. Like, just let me know. So I go to work, and Grace calls me back, and she said, "Okay, you'll never fucking believe this." And I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, "The plumber found that in the city code, it says, oh, these pipes need to be copper." That's what our inspector was referencing, right? The plumber knew about a separate part of the code, which is provisional and says, actually, for certain water heaters, you don't need to have this third pipe done. And so when our listing agent hired the plumber, he said, "Hey, here's the deal with the water heater. Here's the inspection. Just make it insurable." And he did that. And he used a function of the code that our inspector didn't know about.
Mm.
Additionally, the listing agent called the electrician who said, "Hey, dude, I did a fine job with the electrical panel. Double tapping isn't a big deal. The city came out, inspected, and approved my work. So we're good to go." And so I'm like, so we're good to go. Because if the city is approving the electrical panel, that means it's up to code because the city writes the code.
Yeah.
And the water heater's up to code too. So we're good to go. And Grace was like, "Yeah, I called the inspector and he said that he started talking to more of his contacts. And he said, you know what? Hands up, I'm wrong about the water heater. And it's best practice to not double tap shit in the electrical panel. I recommend having it fixed. But if the city said it's up to code, then I guess it's up to code." And so I was like, awesome. And so he writes an email to us and our client where he's like, "Hey, I guess the water heater's up to code. I guess the electrical panel's up to code, but it's a safety thing. You should probably have it done anyways." And on the one hand, I'm like, "Oh my God, why are you stressing our client out? If the city says the electrical panel is up to code, then it's up to code." And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, an inspector's job is to essentially like, you know, like recommend to the best of his ability. When Joel was looking at buying a truck and he was like, "Look, the Carfax report was green." I was like, "Yeah, but see if you can get a maintenance history for it." And he was like, "Well, I don't have that." And then I was like, "Well, how do you know that the oil was changed every 5,000 miles?" And I was like, "Okay, I'm basically the inspector for this deal."
Mm.
He's doing his job really well. It's just that we're going to have to let our client know, hey, the inspector doesn't think it's up to safety regulations, but the city does. And the seller is not going to the seller is not responsible to have to pay for the difference. So if you want to get it done better, that's up to you. Um, and so we were like, okay, we're going to tell our client that. And then I was like, actually, let's just call the listing agent and see if we can get the electrician to come out and fix it. And so the listing agent called the electrician and got him to come out and fix it. And I was like, awesome, sweet. Now our buyer isn't going to be stressed out at all. Everything's going to be done to standards. We're getting it done,
Yeah.
right? Our client is really passionate about things being done the right way, similar to how you and I are with cars. And so I was really happy that we were able to get the electrician to come back out, because although the city thinks that it's up to standards and like it's not a safety issue and stuff, I know that he wouldn't sleep well at night knowing that, and he would probably have to pay to get it fixed. So I'm really happy that we were able to get it fixed before he moved in.
Nice.
So
I got a little bit of I didn't say anything, but I bumped into Grace and I was like, "How's real estate going?" And she was in the middle of this, and
was
she was like,
Friday.
yeah, yeah. It was funny.
Yeah, it was a stressful day because like
Yeah.
10 a.m. we close at 3:30. That's the latest we can push closing on Friday. So we have 5.5 hours to figure this out. She called me at noon and she was like, "I think we're good." So awesome. Um, I'm running through my notes here. Everything's greenlit. We're back on for closing. So I drive to the title company at 3:30. They're already signing papers. Everything's going well. We get to a singular form, and I learned something new. We get to a singular form that our client is like, "I don't know if I want to sign this." And I'm like, "Fuck, dude. There's so many forms you have to sign for closing." And he and the title company had been speaking for weeks so that he understands every single form, right? Which is awesome. I read the terms and conditions for everything that I sign. It's exactly what he should be doing. There's this one form that's unexpected. Here's what the form is. Sometimes a mortgage company, you want to buy a house. You don't have any money. You need to get a mortgage, right? So you come to me, an MLO or a mortgage loan originator, right? And I'm going to write you a mortgage. So I'm going to give you the money to buy this house. You're going to start paying down the mortgage. And at first, it's mostly interest, not much principal. And then the more principal you pay down, the less interest. You know how like the amortization schedule works, right?
Relatively, yeah.
Yeah. Usually your first few payments are like mostly interest, and then it gets better, right? So I'm going to wait for you to make several payments to where I make a good chunk of money because you're paying mostly interest and not a whole lot of principal. And then I'm going to turn around to a different mortgage company. I'm going to say, "Hey, I've got this mortgage. This guy's been making his payments pretty regularly. I don't think there's any risk that he's going to, foreclose. Do you want to buy this from me?" And they'll go, "Sure." And so then I sell it to them, right? And now you're their problem. You need to consent to that before you buy the house. So you have to sign a form that says it's okay if I sell your mortgage to someone else. They can't change your rates or anything like that. Nothing resets on your end. Everything's the same, but you still have to consent to it. What's interesting is in this form, it was written as if it was written to somebody in the Department of Education. So they were like, "You, a school teacher, are okay with this." And our client was like, "I am not a school teacher. What the fuck is this?" And so we didn't sign it. And so we finished all the paperwork, and the title company lady says, "Okay, so we have to send this to the lender, the bank, and make sure they're cool with you not signing that form. So you have to stay at the table. You can't leave until we hear back." And so I'm like, "Oh my God, after all this, like this is what's going to kill the deal. It's going to be literally the last second. It's going to be like the bank is going to want this one form signed and they're not going to edit it. Our client isn't a school teacher." And so I'm joking and I'm like, "You're going to have to quit your job and go get a job in the education department." And he laughed. And ultimately, it came out that everything was fine. The bank approved it, closed, everything's good to go. So we drove back to the property. We unlocked the lockbox. We handed over the keys to the new owner. He was super stoked. We hung out in the house for a minute and like had a little celebration. He's a first time home buyer, so this was like a special moment for him.
Oh, cool.
That was awesome. Grace bought her nice camera to get nice pictures taken. And one of the lessons that I learned is I have no idea how to properly do like satisfied customer photos. Um, so we did our best, and I'm gonna take all the pictures to the social media woman at Blue Marlin, Chloe. I already messaged her.
Yeah.
I realized in hindsight that I sound like kind of an asshole because that morning I met her, and then I texted her afterwards, and I was like, "Hey, it was a pleasure meeting you today. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future." And she was like, "It's awesome to meet you too. Like, sounds good." And then 5 hours later, I texted her and I was like, "Hey, I just closed on my first property, and I realized I don't know how to do satisfied customer photos. Can I bring them in next week and show you and have you give me notes?" And I was like, "That kind of sounds more vain than I want it to." I'm excited, but I'm trying not to be like, let it go to my head, you know?
Mm.
Not that it is. I'm
I
trying
wouldn't
to,
think about it too much. I think you're okay.
what'd you say?
I wouldn't think about it too much. I think you're okay.
Yeah. In any case, I'm gonna bring those photos to her and be like, "Hey, I think these are terrible. Can you help me like make them into a graphic to make it look better? How am I supposed to post this so that I don't look like a piece of shit?" You know what I mean? But I can still advertise, "Hey, here is a happy customer, right? And so I'm going to do that next week. And then also next week, I'm going to get him a housewarming gift and then ask him to write a Google review for Grace and I. I also have to make a business Google profile because I don't have that yet. So there's still things that I have to do. But right after closing, we went to Pauhana and did like a little celebration with Tyler.
Very
and-
nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And immediately Tyler was like, "Hey, this house that I've been trying to close on for like a year, the guy's really twisting my dick around. We had another deal fall through. I might give you that referral if you want it because I don't want it anymore." And I was like, "Maybe, I don't know. It sounds like a waste of time." And he was like, "There's another like older couple that live beachside that they have a listing I might not have time for. It's probably like a $500,000 home. I would give you a referral fee for that too." And I was like, "Awesome." So we already have more deals coming in, right? And so I got my laptop out, and then Grace was like, "No, you said you're going to take this weekend off. Like, take the weekend off." Right. And I was like, "Okay." So she made me go home and build my Legos, which is a sentence that I never thought I'd say because I love building Legos. But successfully so far this weekend, I've built Legos. I made the pulled pork. I watched Formula One. We went to a nice Italian restaurant for dinner last night as like a small celebration. All in all,
one?
Prado in Winter Park.
Okay.
It's
nice.
very good.
Yeah. I've heard.
So all in all, I spent $400 on the Lego set, and then Grace bought dinner. So
I went to Pray Dump this weekend.
you went to what?
Pray Dump.
What the fuck is that?
That's the name for my kitchen cabinet with my ramen noodles in it.
Great Tom. So we had like a nice little celebration, and successfully so far I've not done work, but I've snuck work in a little bit. Because I've been going on beach walks this week to try to get a little bit more of a tan so that I don't look pasty white in my headshots that I'm getting done on today. Don't know if you've noticed. Probably not.
You look beautiful.
Thanks. So I've been doing these beach walks with Grace.
Yeah.
On beach walks is a great opportunity to talk about next steps in real estate. So I've been walking her through the next steps because we're currently trying to help Callie find an apartment. We currently have a listing appointment that our clients stood us up on Saturday. So we were supposed to have a listing appointment yesterday at lunch, but they didn't respond to us. So I'm not sure what's happening there. I have to follow up. But we have a potential lead from someone in another state who wants to move to Florida. And so I told her, hey, we should get on that this week. We got to call the apartments on behalf of Callie. We have a couple more that we need to answer questions from to schedule tours. And then there's these leads from Tyler. And then also I want to take the photos from the property that we took at closing on Friday and then make mailers to send to that whole neighborhood. Using IMAP, I can now search for like a 10 square mile radius or like a neighborhood, right? So I did this for the neighborhood I grew up in, Three Meadows in Rockledge, right? I just said, okay, so here I'm in IMAP, which is a tool in MLS. In Three Meadows, look at homes that, people live at the home, right? So they don't live out of state. They're an in-state owner. And then generate a list of the property address, the name of the owner, their email address, their phone number, their whatever, date of birth, etc. Right? And then it auto-populates the list of like 400 homes in that neighborhood. And then I can send that to a Blue Marlin tool that I don't know how to use yet that will automate mailers. So I can give the social media lady pictures of the house from closing and say, hey, can you make a piece of content that essentially says, hey, we just sold this house in your neighborhood. Your house could be worth more. Contact us if you're interested in selling your home, right? Using the equity that you have built in your home. And then I can give her the list that I made from IMAP and say, send it to all these houses. And then it will print an envelope and stamp with no return address and send to all those people. And I'll do that probably 2 or 3 times over the course of 2 weeks. And then I'm going to go door to door knocking and say, hey, you may have seen one of my mailers. I'm here to introduce myself in person. I've done this quick CMA on your house. I see you bought it in 2002 for $150,000. The house we just sold for $285,000. I think I could get probably $320,000 for yours. That's a lot of equity you have built up. Let's sit down and talk about it, right? So I'll go door to door. And so then I'm talking about all this on the beach walks with Grace. Grace has also expressed interest in coming over to Blue Marlin because they don't have any monthly fees.
Yeah.
I think that I prefer the branding and culture of Blue Marlin more than the branding and culture of Remax.
Yeah.
I think that Grace is comfortable with the culture and branding of Remax, but it's the monthly dues that are really killing her with student loans on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I have some big monthly bills that I just got an email from my content it's my content platform for product seeding, Incense. And they're like, we just want to let you know that we'll be renewing your 3-month subscription at $1,800. And I'm like, it's not 1,800. It's 1,500, which
Right.
is still not cheap. But
Right.
I was like, I asked you guys literally a month ago this is like another finance issue. I don't like understand. It's like the level of incompetence that I deal with, even when big companies, is just like fascinating.
Is it incompetence or is it they're trying to like
I don't
pull
know
the
if
rug
it's
out?
negligence or incompetence.
Well, I'm wondering if it's intentional. Like,
I
oh,
would
you've got a
not.
subscription, so I'm gonna bump my storage unit
Yeah.
does that.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's like I asked them to remove these extra brands,
Right.
and these accounts, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no problem, you won't get charged for it." And then they put it on my next bill, and I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, like,
Yeah.
and then I sent them an email on Wednesday. Have I heard back? No.
Right.
Did it have a 48-hour required window to respond in? Yes.
That's
Like,
fucked up. I don't know if it's incompetence or if it's intentional or what, but it's
I don't
fucked.
know. I'll
I
just
don't
lock the card when they go to charge if they don't fix it.
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
But that's a pain because then you don't get what you paid
yeah,
for.
it's just like it's stupid. Why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
Just respond.
Yeah.
Funny enough, they didn't respond to my initial email, but they sent me a different email offering me a discount on a 6-month subscription. And I'm like,
Ooh.
fix my stuff first, then I'll consider your offer.
Yeah.
Fix my stuff first.
Yeah. How do I know that your 6-month deal is actually a deal?
6 month at 1,800 a month.
Yeah. Right.
Or 1,800 every 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But
So I'm telling Grace about all this on our walks. I want to get business cards made. Oh, she's interested, so we're gonna set up a meeting with her this week. I know, dude. It's a fucking awesome story. Nick Chambers is one of the brokers at Blue Marlin, one of two owner brokers. He's a motorsports guy. He's the guy that Tyler said, "Oh, my real estate buddy goes to the Rolex every year."
oh yeah.
Turns out, excuse me. Turns out he was sick this year, but his dad raced an IMSA. He
Oh,
raced a Mazda RX-7 in IMSA.
oh cool.
And his dad passed a few years ago, but Nick was trying to find the car that he used to race because now he has the money to buy it. And he found the car in like a Hollywood mega mansion millionaire's house. And he asked to buy it, but the guy was like, it's in like hundreds of pieces. No, it's going to be too expensive with everything all apart. Turns out that that house was eventually sold to someone new, and the new owner was like, "Hey, dude, I'll sell you whatever you want, but like, honestly, a lot of it is in shitty condition." But he found the front fenders with the original racing paint still on them,
Oh
like
cool.
racing condition, and
Wow.
Nick was able to buy those. Super cool.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. But I'm gonna try to schedule a meeting with him and Grace for next week, maybe when I get my headshots or something. I'm supposed to text him today, to see if we can get her over to Blue Marlin too. I bought a couple t-shirts and I want to buy a Yeti cooler. They have custom branded Blue Marlin Yeti coolers. And I want to buy one for my desk at work because in my cubicle, I have like filing cabinets kind of at eye level. And a lot of people will put like small trinkets on top of that. But the very few people that put something large on top of that become like a landmark in the office because the cubicle farm looks the same. So they'll be like, oh, walk to the model plane and then turn right 5 cubes down or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So if I can put a Blue Yeti Blue Marlin cooler up there with like a cool plant that I'm gonna have Derek find for me. I'm already talking to him about it. Then I become a landmark, and then people will ask questions. They'll come to my desk and they'll talk
Oh
about
yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm also gonna buy enough T-shirts to wear a Blue Marlin shirt every day of the week at work. So no more racing shirts or anything else. It's just gonna be straight advertising. Um, yeah. So then I also want to talk to the sales manager at Blue Marlin about the mailers to see what he thinks of the mailer design and what other marketing techniques I can do. Generally speaking, every sale that you make should convert to at least 2 more sales. Our client's dad owns the house that he's moving out of and is interested in selling it, so that could be a potential lead. His friend, who's actually renting one of the rooms from him in this new house, has expressed that he might be able to use a VA loan to buy a house. And so I'd like to reach out to him and explain to him the benefits of using a VA loan and where he can potentially use it. So that could be 2 leads, but I want to try to get someone that I don't know, like I haven't put myself in, like a brand new person who just like cold sale, cold outreach, right? Um, yeah. So that's my business update this week. So good
Very
week.
nice.
Good
Very
week.
nice.
Yeah, and I got a Blue Marlin pen. That's what this guy is.
Oh cool. There you go.
Do you want to hear about my life update?
Yeah.
Okay, there's less going on here. I already talked about the beach walks and the Lego and Prado stuff. But while I build Lego, I like to watch documentaries on Netflix. So I've been all over the place. I watched a comedy show, and then I watched a sports documentary, and then I watched probably the second best documentary that I've seen on 9/11 ever. There's one on HBO that I saw several years ago. It's like a 5 or 7 part series. It's like super heart-wrenching, right? But it's about 9/11 in New York, the event, right?
Mm,
This is about 9/11 and then the CIA and military's operations to hunt down and kill Osama bin Laden.
got it.
And 9/11 is always very, like, inspirational to me in the sense that it makes me very passionate about my country. It makes me patriotic, right?
Mhm.
As I think it does for most Americans, but especially for me because it reminds me that when I go to work every day at Northrop Grumman, it does make a difference. Because when you hear about the stories of Marines on the ground when they're doing a siege of Kabul and they're outnumbered like 4-1 and they're trying like the enemy is starting to surround them and they call in air support and the air support shows up and craters the entire city, right? Like the enemy starts to retreat when they hear our planes show up
Mm.
because America has an air force like the world has never seen before, right?
Right.
Like air power goes such a long way in the fight on the ground. And that makes me proud to go to work every day. So it makes me like, inspired. But there was an interesting part of the documentary in which one of the CIA agents they were talking about like the philosophical divide of torture in the military. So for example, they opened Guantanamo Bay, which is a non-civilian military prison facility outside of the United States because it's outside the United States, so you can torture people there. That's essentially what that is. So when a political enemy or like a terrorist is sent to Guantanamo Bay, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to get put through the ringer because they have some information. And some of the CIA agents were saying, oh, like at that point, when I heard that they were moving some of these targets that we had helped track down in Afghanistan to Guantanamo Bay to torture them for information, I quit the program. And I was like, their position was torturing people is bad and you shouldn't do it, which I think is a good position. However, if these people caused 9/11, I don't think there's any amount of torturing that you can't torture them enough to get what they deserve, right? I don't believe in hell. I don't think that they're going to be tortured for the rest of eternity after they die. So we got to get it all in while they're alive, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Especially if it's at a means to get information from them to go find more terrorists, right?
Yeah.
And their position was, well, it's not effective, right? But there's a cool story where they had tracked down Osama bin Laden's right-hand man and they captured him, right? And they kept him alive at Guantanamo Bay. And they were torturing him to try to figure out where Osama bin Laden was. And he was like, I don't know where he is. They couldn't get anything out of him. And eventually, after enough torture, he was telling them everything they wanted to know. And so he was spilling beans on like all kinds of shit. But he still was like, I don't know where bin Laden is right now. I know where he was before, whatever. He was giving them pretty much everything. So they had him like putty in their hands, right? And eventually they caught wind that Osama bin Laden released a tape to the world, like, I'm still going to try to kill Americans. You should be afraid, right? Basically just instilling terror. And the CIA was like, how did he get this video out? He took the video somewhere, that tape was put on a hard drive, and then that hard drive was carried somewhere and then distributed to the world, right? So who is the courier that transports the tape? And they tracked down who they think could be the guy that did that and then followed him back to Osama bin Laden's mansion, or what at the time they considered could be his compound,
Mm.
right? And so they went to the second right-hand man at Guantanamo Bay and they were like, what do you know about this courier guy? Because we see him coming and going here and it's kind of syncing up with the videos that Osama bin Laden is releasing. And the guy was like, I don't know who you're talking about. And they were like, are you sure? And he was like, yeah, I'm telling you everything. I don't know this guy. And they were like, okay. So they sent him back to the prison cell with all the other terrorists, and they had bugged the cell with
Yeah.
microphones. And when he went back to the cell, he said in Arabic to everybody, he was like, no one speak about the courier. You guys don't know anything. So he does know shit, right?
Yeah.
That motherfucker. And I was like, that's why this interrogation stuff is important, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting. So the CIA lady she had previously made this statement about how like interrogation is bad and whatever, and like, whatever, right? She was like, no one deserves that, right? Well, if you're being interrogated and you're still hiding stuff from us, fuck you, right? Because you're still promoting the
Yeah.
terrorism thing. She later went on to say in the documentary, terrorism only has power if you give it power. If you live in fear, you let terrorism take effect and ultimately win. And I was like, terrorism is an interesting concept, but I don't know if that is entirely true. And then I continued to think about it and I was like, I'm not sure. Because when you think about traditional terrorism, what Osama bin Laden wants you to feel is afraid that on your way to work, the bus you're riding might blow up, right?
Right.
And I was like, interesting, because since we killed Osama bin Laden, there's been far fewer terrorist attacks. Why is that, right? It's not because Osama bin Laden was running a lot of it, right? Because there's other terrorists that want to carry out these attacks and they're capable of it, right? TSA isn't that strict, right? And then I had this realization that I had never seen before. So I have this written out. Only America has the ability to locate a single man on the opposite side of the planet, track him to a singular building, identify the room he sleeps in, and execute him in a tactical operation in the dead of night using technology so advanced even the SEALs utilizing it don't fully understand how it works. That is terror. Osama bin Laden didn't know what terror was until it blew his face apart at point blank range. We didn't win the war on terror, we out-terrorized the terrorists. Because as scary as it is to think that your bus might blow up on the way to work, it's way scarier to know that America has your name on a list and they're looking for you and they're gonna find you. That's
Yeah.
way scarier.
Yeah.
And I had never considered that we didn't lose or win the war on terror, we just out-terrorized them.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
Yeah. I hear that.
That's my life update. Along with the
Cool.
beach walk and the Lego and Prado and stuff
Yeah, and the pulled pork.
and the pulled pork. Yeah.
Very nice.
We have an actual podcast topic today.
We do,
If
we
you wanna
do.
talk about it.
Yes, yes. My points are rather brief because I think I wrote more for the life and business and then
Gotcha.
kind of briefed out on the main segment. Figured the life and business are kind of spilling more into the podcast
Yeah.
than the philosophical points. Although the philosophical points, maybe we can discuss or brainstorm in the future how to weave in the philosophical points into the business and life. I think maybe our special podcast coming up would be a good opportunity to kind of like test that platform out a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But we could play around with that idea.
Yeah. I feel like the last few weeks we've been doing a lot in business and life, and so we have a lot to talk about, but I kind of feel like every week I feel like, okay, next week's probably gonna be slower and I'm gonna have less to update on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's actually gonna happen or not, but it's just
No,
like a feel.
I feel like my weeks will continue to be uh, busy on the business side. I hope.
Okay.
I hope at least.
Then we can roll
a
we
good
can roll into maybe like only 1 or 2 segments on philosophical stuff to keep it lighter.
Yeah, or try to we can brainstorm.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah, we'll dive into it.
awesome. All right, let's get into it. So our first segment is on how do we define happy? And I have fewer bullet points for this podcast, but longer intros. So for this, I define happy as being in an emotional state of content. To expand on this, any dopamine above the state of content consists in the category of happiness. So to clarify, I define content as a state of satisfaction without the feeling of stagnation or anxiety. The moment you dip below the state of content, you exit the category of happy. So it's kind of like top half is happy, bottom half is not happy, right? This is intentionally a very broad definition. And my reason for it is because the wider I set my goalposts, the easier it is for me to define myself as happy. And if I pigeonhole myself into a state of happiness being like extreme exhilaration following like a big victory, I spend a lot less time being happy. But to expand further and loop the topic into our podcast a bit, I don't care about being happy, but I find that if I keep my standards for happiness at an unrealistic height, I'll lose the passion I have for the life that I have every day. Every day, happy or not, I think is a gift. And I find I can more easily recognize and appreciate that fact on days that I categorize as happy. So if I'm able to spend more days in that period, then am more appreciative of the life that I'm living. If I only live for 1 day a year, I find I have less appreciation for every day between the start and that 1 day of the year.
I would agree. I had actually I had a really hard time defining happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it and I was like, I'm definitely struggling to figure out how to define it. And I I like some of Jordan Peterson's stuff for sure. Some of it I have a tough time grasping.
You mean in general or
In general, but I got a way to weave it in.
got it?
But I was listening to a podcast of his, and he was trying to define the opposite of evil. And his perspective was like joy.
Mhm.
Joy is the opposite of evil. And so I was like, I think my best way to define happiness is through joy, play, and laughter. Like one of those or a culmination of those or a combination of those,
Mm-hmm.
can result in a feeling of happiness,
Mm.
a small, it's almost like a blissful moment or a blissful period of time. I can kind of see as like happy,
Interesting.
right?
So paradoxically, someone who is doing evil but finds joy doing it,
They're probably happy.
they're happy.
Yeah.
But
And I think
but
there
it's
are
the
examples of
opposite.
people like that.
So is it easy to define someone who is evil because they find joy doing evil acts, whereas a regular person would not find joy doing evil acts?
Could
If
you
evil and joy are the opposite,
Sure.
someone who is both at the same time is evil, and someone who feels them differently is not.
Yeah, I mean, I see that as a possibility. There's about an hour-long segment that Jordan Peterson dives into it. So I don't know his take, and I really don't know my take exactly on it.
Mhm.
I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what this
but
podcast is for.
yeah,
Think
yeah,
about
that my my best guess is, um, like joy, play, laughter,
it. Mhm.
and those combined, or one of those, can lead to a sensation of happiness.
Yeah, so that I have written here that happiness is a feeling,
Yeah,
and so therefore it's subjective.
yeah,
So sensation of happiness, I think, is a good way to phrase it.
definitely, definitely. Um, and I played around with the idea with contentment, but I feel like you can be content and unhappy for sure.
I think that contentment is probably the differential of happiness. In that if you are like it's kind of like how acceleration is never zero, it's positive or negative. Happiness is or the sensation of happiness is either positive or zero. The state at which acceleration is zero doesn't exist. That's just constant velocity, right? And I think constant velocity is the state of being content. So in being content, you're either content and stressed out that you're not doing work, or you're content and you're happy with where you're at, right? So I would say that right after closing on Friday, I was amped up and I was like, let's fucking go. Let's get more work done. And Grace was like, you need to go home and chillax. And at that point, I would say that I was feeling multiple things, but I would say that I was probably content and happy, but a little stressed that I wasn't doing work because I was in the mood to do work, right?
Mm,
But then Saturday, I realized the world will keep turning. I can do work while I play through the beach walks, and the work will still be there on Monday, right? And at that point, I was content and not stressed out about the work that I wasn't doing. And so that's content with a positive velocity, positive acceleration.
yeah, yeah. I hear that. I hear that. But it was very challenging for me to define happy, and I tried to approach it from the framework of I don't I don't think happiness is the overarching goal of my life. And so I think that happiness flows in and out and flows as it will. So what emotions, as I'm going along this journey, what emotions tie best to my sensation of happiness?
Mhm.
And so that's why I put like joy, play, and laughter.
Right.
Um, but the idea of contentment, I thought about a little bit, but I didn't play with, pun intended, too much. Um, but I think that the reason I tried to kind of weave in this concept of happiness not being an integral requirement of my journey through life is that I think largely, at least in my experience, the vehicle of happiness, or the sensation of happiness, has been a vehicle for me to disconnect from the responsibility that I know I should be doing.
Mm.
And so I feel as though in my moments of happiness, although I enjoy them, fundamentally those moments break me away from the work I know I should be doing.
Mm.
And so I value the work I should be doing more than the sensation of happiness. And therefore, I don't want to create happiness as an integral requirement of my journey,
Right.
right? Because then I'm going to be seeking happiness, which fundamentally I feel as though takes me away from the work I should be doing. Because once I feel the sensation of happiness, like that's what I want to do. Like I just want to keep doing those things and keep being happy and enjoying my time. But I think my efforts are more valuable when put towards the work that needs doing.
That's very similar to what I have written in section 3, but I have a different take on it.
Yeah, it
You're
ties
made
in
for
my
a really great example of that. Um, I have as far as the definition of happiness goes, it's tough because it's different for everyone. I kind of see it like as a spectrum.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
I don't think it's binary. I think there's different levels to it. So, I mean, when someone cuts me off in traffic, I'm not happy, right? I'm feeling a negative emotion. I think as far as emotion goes, you can say it's from, if emotion is from a -10, which is murdering someone, to +10, which is the highest form of elation that you can possibly get, and 0 is being truly content and not feeling emotion one way or the other.
Mm,
I think that every positive integer is happiness for me, even if it's small. So, like, I have the scale kind of written out here. Um, Driving with no real destination, right? Completely zen, content in my current condition, right? I think that's neutral,
mm,
right? Music's playing, maybe it's a song I like, not really going anywhere, got nothing to do. That's happiness for me. A little bit beyond that is completing daily milestones, like going to the gym or like cleaning, doing chores, or just like going to work at like the bar, right? Doing my daily tasks and then going to bed at night going, okay, yeah, I checked the boxes today. That's a good feeling. Slightly above that is completing like midterm milestones. So like getting a promotion at work or like a first sale.
mhm.
And then the height is like achieving victory in a challenging competition. So like winning a race, hitting a PR, hitting a sales goal, like an annual sales goal or something like that.
Yeah,
But I think that being pleased with your current state of being is very different for everyone. And so
yeah,
like my happy might not none of these 4 points I just made might resonate with someone. Someone might not give a fuck about driving. Someone might not give a fuck about completing daily milestones. Grace told me she was like people with ADHD sometimes don't get dopamine from like, the satisfaction of having done laundry, right? Some ADHD people don't feel that. I feel that. So like I don't like doing the laundry. I don't like looking forward to doing the laundry, but once the laundry's done, I feel good. And then that's, motivation to do it again the next time.
yeah.
But the scale might look differently for different people, but I think that fundamentally saying that happiness is experiencing an emotion or sensation in that positive integer column, like joy, play, laughter, is how I would categorize happiness.
Could you say that last part one more time?
I think that everything that's a positive integer on your
Yeah.
emotional spectrum, in that every positive integer in that column, such as joy, play, and laughter, count for me as happiness.
Yes, just in varying degrees, I
Right.
guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can be a little happy or you can be super happy.
Right.
And I feel like people, and we'll get to this in the second section, usually try to pigeonhole themselves into if I'm not absolutely in love with my current state of being, then I'm not happy. People think that being content is not being happy.
Yeah, and I think that it comes from also a product of people seeing happiness as a requirement for their journey through life.
Right.
Um, and because I see other people as like having happiness as a requirement for their journey, and I see other people also living the lives that I don't necessarily want to live, seeking temporary happiness or quick fixes to their problems. I see there's a potential connection between trying to feel happy every day and not achieving the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And so therefore I try to break apart, okay, happiness is good. It's nice when you feel it, but the big picture in no way needs to reflect a goal of happiness,
Yeah.
right? And it was an interesting thing. It's interesting to think about too because I feel like largely it's a very um maybe American perspective. I'll put it as American perspective. Maybe it's different, but there's definitely a very like American style perspective of like happiness is like central to living life at its fullest.
Mhm.
Um, versus growing up with my baba, like when I would go out to play with friends, she'd be like, all of these Americans I don't understand. They're like, they just want like be happy and have fun. Like that was her perspective. She was like, I just don't get it. Because like she grew up in a very hard environment in the
Right.
USSR and has always worked incredibly hard. Um, and I think she derives uh, joy f- or a sensation of happiness from different things in her life, but the the striving goal of her life isn't to like be happy or content,
Right.
right? Or at least that's how I see it. And I see that in other parts of the world too, like you know, regardless of, the opinions on Andrew Tate, I think that he brings a valuable perspective when it comes to work ethic and its tie or lack thereof to happiness. And one of the things I heard of just scrolling through one night, and I heard him in a reel, and he was like, name tell he was talking to a news reporter, and he was like, tell me about one person that you remember from history who is genuinely great that was remembered for being happy. He was like, did I don't remember the exact people that he mentioned, but he was like, Alexander the Great, was he happy? Or George Washington, was he happy? Or, these other big influential figures
Mhm.
in history. Like, were they happy through that time, or were they influential? Right. And
Right.
or did they make great strides in some avenue? When we can, the idea of great versus not great, or right versus wrong, is like a whole, a separate debate that we've touched on before. But um, that sensation of happiness, I feel it can potentially detract from the work at hand. And so I try to separate them. And um I guess I'm kind of diving into section 2 by accident, but
Well, let's
um
run into it. I've got an intro
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
So section 2 is on why people yearn for happiness. And I'm glad that you brought up the national difference between them, because I've noticed this for an American perspective. It's impossible for me to speak for everyone, obviously,
Yeah,
but I feel that the traditional American culture encourages people to chase their happiness. So
yeah.
some immediate
I mean, the
examples.
Constitution's the pursuit of happiness.
I have it written here. The
Yeah.
Declaration of Independence
Very
states
sorry, yeah.
Americans have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
The American dream is often referred to as a beacon of hope for those in other countries to immigrate here and find their happiness.
Yes.
The immigrant ideology opens up an interesting door. If the American dream is the cheese, surely unfavorable conditions in other countries can be considered the cat. So
Yeah.
be it Russia,
Right.
Mexico, cartels. I have noticed that it's far easier for a person to escape the cat than it is to reach the cheese. And that's shown by people who immigrate here from other countries will continue to work hard, but they're not doing it with a gun to their head. They're doing it because they love to do it. But people who are born into massive wealth in America, they don't know what cats are, right? But they struggle to experience the cheese because they have no hardships to endure. So someone who immigrates
Yeah.
from another country like your baba is like, why is everyone so focused on this cheese? Dog, I don't have a cat anymore. That's enough. Right. But for people who've never experienced the cat, all they have to focus on is the cheese. And it's way harder to achieve the cheese than it is to get away from the cat, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's kind of it almost ties back into your previous example with Alex Ramosi and talking about the people in the conference room who like all raised their hands up when they had a bill that they couldn't pay, but
Yeah.
then put their hands down when asked if they didn't figure out how they could pay it, right?
Exactly.
Um, it's a that cat really does get you going.
Right. And when you have to pay someone else, you figure it out. You get away from the cat.
Yeah,
But when you have to pay yourself, you're not as resourceful, right?
yeah,
When you're looking to get the cheese, right?
yeah,
I think also the definitions for escaping the cat are much easier to define than the cheese. So if it's like, okay, well, I live in Bangladesh and I can't afford to eat every day. And if I'm caught stealing food, I'll have my hands chopped off. That's a very clearly defined cat. At that point, the cheese is like fucking anything that isn't this anymore. So you immigrate to the United States and you start working as a janitor and you have enough money to put food on the table and you can say what you'd like and, even steal without getting your hands chopped off. There's other repercussions, but not as bad, right? At that point, you're like, hey, these people don't know how good they have it. They don't have to worry about having their hands chopped off. They don't have to worry about starving. They can work. There is no cat here. So be content. Right? Don't
mm,
don't be so focused on the cheese because you don't recognize that there are cats out there, right? But for happiness, I think it feels good, obviously. Like chemically, our brains force us to
Yeah.
yearn for happiness. We're not really given a choice but to feel happy when we produce dopamine.
Right.
And our,
Right.
huh?
Sorry. No, I
Oh,
coughed.
gotcha. And our brains yearn for more of the stimulus that promote the production of dopamine,
Mhm.
right? Because the brain likes dopamine, so do
Yeah.
more things that produce dopamine. Um, I was talking to Grace about this last night from a psychological perspective. And she made a great point, which is that the chemical exists to point you toward things that will further the human race. That's why sex feels good, is
Mhm.
because the things that feel good are meant to further the human race. And what's interesting is that drugs make you feel good, but that's not something that your body produces on its own. That's external stimulus that forces your brain to make those chemicals, which is why drugs are interesting because you don't have to do the stimulus that normally you would have to do
Yeah.
to make your brain produce the chemical. You're basically forcing the brain to produce the chemicals. But in general, I think that the answer to why people yearn for happiness is pretty simple, which is just like we're anatomically wired to want to, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's hard to break down because it's, at least for me in my case, I feel as though I need to break down that requirement, because I feel as though the happiness gets in the way of the work at hand, and I value the work at hand more than I do being happy and content because I feel as though I can achieve more by continuing to work and push that I can by
right.
trying to strive for happiness. And I don't know if striving for happiness is really an achievable goal either, because I feel like you'll continuously move the point at which you feel happy. If that's your goal is to like just be happy, like you will acclimate to whatever happiness you conjure up in your life and then want the next thing.
Right. So I have written here socially, our culture promotes following your dreams and achieving your goals. And then physically, our brains promote the production of chemicals that encourage us to follow our dreams and achieve our goals, right? Or in other words, be happy. So in America, we have the social guidelines of, hey, you should go try to be happy. And then chemicals in our brain say, scroll through TikTok, that makes you happy, right?
Mm,
But let's do segment three because this is, I think, where your points carry the most weight.
yeah.
So segment three is how living without pursuing happiness can be beneficial. So now comes the critical point of the podcast, in which I think, in the interest of utmost clarity, I'll personally say that I think that being happy is a good thing.
Mm,
We all like it. Chemically, we kind of don't have a choice, and we're given the choice to take action. And sorry, and if we're given the choice to take action with the same outcome, but to do it with happiness or without it, I'll choose to do it with happiness every time. Here's the issue. People focus on the perceived importance of being happy so much, they start to lose focus of the other important factors.
yeah.
Crackheads are some of the happiest people you'll ever meet in your life while they're high. But that obviously comes at the deficit of their physical health and usually their livelihoods. This is similar to the heartthrob romantics who are looking for love so hard they scare off their potential prospects, like Lenny from Mice and Men, who suffered the same path when he held the mouse that he loved so dearly too tightly and squeezed it to death. The moral here is that focusing on the outcome is not nearly as effective as focusing on the input. Visualization and manifestation don't cause promotions at work. Showing up on time, completing your work above the level of expectation, and treating your team members with respect does. Those are inputs. I believe living in the pursuit of inputs is that result in the output of happiness, and those inputs are totally different for everyone because happiness is subjective. So, what's interesting with your perspective of like the happiness distracts me from the work that needs to be done is that I feel happiness from the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So for me, they're kind of the same thing.
I mean, sometimes I do feel happy getting the work done.
Mhm.
I just don't like putting it as a requirement because then when I don't feel happy doing the work, I feel as though I shouldn't do the work.
Right. And so then you could say, instead of focusing on being happy or the output, focus on the inputs that make you happy because the input is the work. So by focusing on the work, you get the output, which is happiness. But if you focus on happiness, then you're not going to get any of the work done and you're missing the whole point. Right.
Doesn't that put a requirement on the input of the work being happiness at the end though?
For this particular situation.
Yeah.
If someone else feels happiness not from doing work, but for doing something else, then the inputs would be different.
Yeah, I don't know if like I think on a long enough time horizon, the work that I put in will result in some form of happiness.
Mhm.
But um it's just challenging for me to put it as a it's challenging for me to put it as an end result that way, because then I seek it and then I'm waiting for it. Like if I don't ever expect happiness to come out of the work that I'm doing, then I won't be waiting for it.
Mm.
And therefore I don't have to be patient for it. I can just be I can be pleased with the work I'm accomplishing and the path that I'm carving.
I think that happiness is bound to result at some point as an output of that.
Probably. Yeah,
Right.
likely.
Right.
But if I put it in my mind as a potential, then I'll wait for it.
Yeah. I think that it's important to focus on the inputs with an output being a specific goal and happiness being a byproduct of that goal. Like, I would argue that happiness comes along with achieving your goals. And like Hormozy says, impatient with inputs, patient with outputs. So if you are continuously working toward your goals, then you'll undoubtedly hit your goals and then you'll be happy when you hit those goals, right? But if all of your focus is on the inputs and not on the byproduct of the output of being happy, then you get more done because you're focused on the inputs, not the output, right? You're not concerned with the happiness. I think that the struggle here is people it's not the struggle of people wanting to feel happy. I think it's the struggle of people being uncomfortable feeling something other than happy. So my example
Yeah.
here is I've lived in several different states of constant, of unchanging emotion.
Mhm.
I've lived in a state of elation, which is being in a wonderful relationship, in a state of depression, which is the heartbreak following it, and then a state of emptiness, which is post heartbreak, and you're not sure what to do next, right?
Mhm.
So the elation blinded me to my own potential and stifled my goals because I was not working toward them. I was focused on the happiness that I had at hand. I was just reveling in being happy.
Yeah.
Depression blinded me to my own ability and stifled my goals. I had no motivation or self confidence to pursue my goals. I was just sad, so I wasn't doing anything. And then emptiness blinded me to my goals at all. So I felt nothing in regard to achieving or failing to achieve my goals. And the only thing that lifted me from these emotional constants to my current state, which I consider to be healthy, um, was to stop focusing on what I was feeling and start focusing on what I was doing every day to get closer to my goals. And that's tough to do if your goal is being happy, right?
Right.
So I think that the key here is to not make being happy a goal. I think it's
Yeah.
okay to expect it as a byproduct of accomplishing your goals, but to not make happiness the goal. Make something else the goal.
Definitely agree. Yeah. And so what happiness can potentially result from you achieving your goals.
Yeah.
Um but the goal for me has been, how do I build the best life I possibly can for myself and the people around me.
Hmm.
And I think that on that path, although I will experience happiness at points, there's zero guarantee that happiness will be the result of me going further and further down that path. Like to I don't think that there is a required correlation between building the best version of myself and my life and building the best life for the people around me and me feeling happy.
Mm.
Like I think that you can build a really good life for the people around you by being happy or by not being happy. Like the happiness doesn't have to be a product of you building a good life for the people around you. But then it it's it's tricky because it gets into the definition of like what is a good life, you know? And like for me right now, kind of how I'm defining it is, well, a good life is a productive life where I take the opportunity I've been given and make the absolute most of it every day that I can.
This is a good life for you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Like that's a good life, and I've it's almost synonymous with a quality life for me.
Hmm.
Like a quality day or a quality week or life for me is one that I take the inputs I've been given and I yield the highest return on those inputs that I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
But through that equation, happiness isn't necessarily a product of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to me, that's a quality life,
Right.
you know? This and it's something that I struggle with too. I see the drive for happiness in a lot of like the culture within the US especially. Um, and something that I struggle with a little bit too is that there's not a requirement for happiness within the religious community, but there is a requirement. It's not a requirement, but it's almost a proposition of peace. And it's like you will feel at peace with your life through God. Like that's a proposition that Christianity specifically holds. And for me, it's like, well, what if like I don't know that peace is really it's valuable, but why is peace the central importance of my life? Why do I need to feel peaceful? Like there are people that, you know, could use my help and assistance, or people around me that I want to experience life with, and to get to the point where I'm able to facilitate that for them. Like, why is finding peace in that a requirement, right? And that's something that I kind of struggle with. Is like, well, like peace makes me feel content, and when I feel content, I don't want to pursue.
Right.
And so it's like this like battle that I have in that sense as well.
I think that a lot of people will pursue peace because they struggle with feeling the negative integers. They struggle with feeling unhappy or
Right.
discontent,
Yeah.
whatever. And, feeling super elated happiness is um, sometimes a sin, right? In the
Right.
eyes of the church. Because a lot of the things that make you feel good is seen as like overindulgence or lust, right? That's a sin.
Right.
And so they target peace because it's kind of a neutral state of like not feeling one way or the other, but just being calm. Just be a good neighbor. Just be a good egg. Just relax, right? Don't feel upset about things. Don't get in arguments. Don't cause trouble. And then don't get so amped up that you start to act a fool, right?
Mm.
So I think that they set the target for being content because regardless if you're on either side of the spectrum, I think that the church would want you to kind of level out. Find the yin to your yang, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
But I think the conundrum that you're having is does that fit what your goals are, right?
well, and does it fit with what's best for the growth of society too? Because there's a lot of really great people that and individuals that have had a tremendous impact on our world that did not feel like happy or content at any point of their lives.
Mm,
Who have had like a tremendous impact and potentially positive impact on a lot of different people, you know? Like um, you know, uh, looking at Alexander the Great, right? Like, there was definitely a good number of people that he did not do well by, right, in his conquering. But at the same time, like he set a really powerful example for what like strength and the pursuit of your goals can achieve and make happen, in that way.
but I don't know if there's accurate recounting of how Alexander the Great felt. Like, there's a
Mm.
really great record of what he did and what he accomplished, but not how he felt doing it, right? So, like, a great example is like Robert Oppenheimer, right? He did something of large impact and felt conflicted about it, and he well documented his internal conflict, right? Um, I don't think I think Donald Trump is doing very impactful things. I don't think he loses sleep. I think he's probably pretty content from the type of things that we've seen.
Oh, what about Elon? That's a good example. Someone
Elon
who's
does
done
large
a
impact,
lot of
right?
really incredible things, and like he doesn't seem like the type of person who strives for happiness in any way.
Well, so I think there's a difference between do they strive for happiness and do they feel happiness, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't in my
Yeah, yeah, that
example
was
here.
poorly worded, but like I don't see him as the type of person who's like really that happy. Like he has goals and he has outlines and he has things that he's achieving, and that's just w- he just continues to go after that.
I think I've seen him experience happiness and success, right? Like when the rocket does
Yeah,
X,
experiencing your happiness, but, like, by and large, is that, like, the how his life rolls?
I think that his definition of happiness and his pursuit of it is likely similar to what I have written out here, which is happiness is going to come when happiness is going to come. I'm going to focus on the work that needs to be done to get to my goals. And then if happiness happens, it happens. So some days are like staring out into the void and chewing glass. And then
Yeah.
other days are we won the election. I'm super stoked. I'm going to get on stage and jump around like an idiot and make people think that I'm a Nazi, right?
Right.
It depends on the day. But I have written here that so I got out of my relationship emotional roller coaster by focusing on working. And people would refer to me as a workaholic and categorize that as a negative term.
Yeah.
But workaholic is defined as a person who compulsively works hard and long hours. Many people consider this to be negative and thus recommend against doing it. I view this in a different way. I enjoy the act of working. If I told one of the people recommending against focusing on my inputs, hey, there's this opportunity to become a person who compulsively engages in activities they enjoy in quantities they're comfortable with, which ultimately results in greater monetary gain. They'd be all for that. And so that is exactly how I view focusing on my work because I like to work. I like to do it with intensity and I like to do it for long hours. And if I like these three things, then it's not a negative. It's only a negative if it's at a deficit to your life in a way that you're not comfortable with. And most people aren't comfortable with working those hours because they don't derive happiness from work. They derive happiness from just leisure activities.
I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying, but there's been many times in my life where, like, the work like, I don't derive any sort of happiness from the work.
Do you derive happiness from completing the work?
S Frequently, no.
I think that's a difference between you and I.
Yeah.
Because even if I'm doing work that I don't like, I I love the grind and I love the fact that I'm doing it despite not liking it.
I love it, but I love the grind, but I don't love it because it makes me happy. I love it because it's one more step closer to the potential that I feel like I have.
I like doing it because it makes me feel capable and it proves to me that I'm able to do difficult things and that I'm willing to get the work done, which
Mm,
makes me a more dependable person, which shows the people that are close to me in my life that if they need me, I can provide and I can get it done.
mm.
And then that proves to myself as well that when I set ambitious goals, I will go after it because I've worked 3 days in a row on SAE and I, took 200 pages of notes on the real estate course and I got a 99% on my exam and I'm whatever, right? Like all it's building the stack of proof, right? And I prefer to do that in long hours, work hard, right? But even if I'm not excited about it in the moment, there were a lot of nights in SAE where I did not want to be awake anymore. I didn't want to be doing the work that we were doing because it wasn't interesting. But I know from all of the work sessions that I have or that I've had in the past, at the end of it, I feel happy. So I know that even if I don't feel happy right now, I'm going to feel happy that I have done it when I finish it in the future. So I can kind of anticipate that happiness. And then if I get there and I don't feel that way, who cares? The work's done. Now I can move on to the next thing. And I'm happy about having the ability to move on to the next thing,
Mm.
right? That was every day with rowing. Like every day I would wake up at a time that I wasn't comfortable with and make a drive that was too long for a 4:30 in the morning drive. And then I would do a practice that hurt. And then I would finish it and go, oh, dude, that was sick. I can't believe that I'm doing this. No one else is doing this. This is fucking impossible. The only other people doing this are my teammates. And I can see them doing it with the same tenacity that I am. And I know that when we're in the last 500 meters of a race and my lungs are burning, those guys are lungs are burning too, but they're not going to give up, so I'm not either. And that helps me at the start of a race when, we're 500 meters into the race and I'm like, "Oh, this is starting to hurt." And then I go, "Oh, I've done this so many times before. I know that it hurts right now and it's going to feel better later." And it's going to feel way better if I have a medal on. So I'm going to do it as hard as I can right now so that I can look back on this fondly with a medal instead of fondly without a medal. Because even the races that I lost, I still am happy that I did it. And usually I'm happy with my performance because I got progressively better at leaving nothing in the tank, right? Um, but I think that the similarity between Elon and the approach that I'm trying to take is that the focus is all on what actions can we take to get the goals completed and then happiness will come as a byproduct of that. But I'm not concerned about it. I'm not worried about it happening. I'm able
Yeah.
to operate with or without happiness. It's nice to have happiness, but it's not enough for me to focus on trying to do it. If I were
I would agree with
if
that.
I were super unhappy, I might try to focus on being more happy, because if it's actually deficiting my life every day where I'm like, "Man, why am I even alive?" Like, if I started having those thoughts, then I would probably redirect and be like, "Okay, I should probably take my foot off the gas and try to figure out what to do to be a little happier, because this is degrading my mental state," right? But I think I strive to operate in neutral conditions or negative conditions for short periods of time. I think negative emotions for extended periods of time are not constructive.
I think I strive to be able to I think I strive to be able to function regardless,
Mhm.
like you. Um, and I strive to be unbothered by the negativity, the negative emotions being overwhelming for extremely long periods of time. I think that's kind of what like I think the ideal would be if the pool of my life was pain for the entirety of my life. My goal would be to be okay with that.
I think that I have if
I don't think I'm there, but I think that's my goal in
got
that way, in that segment of my goals.
I think I have an unnatural ability to not experience negative emotions when I choose. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have the ability to just stop that. Just stop feeling the
No,
feelings out.
um,
So I don't think I'm as
I think that's just control of your mind and your mental state, which is something that I go to as well. And I try to have. Um,
but I can't control happy. I can only control sad, angry, depressed, whatever. I can stop feeling those things and revert to neutral. It's like I can pull myself from -10 to 0. Similarly, I can pull myself from +10 to 0. If I'm having a great day, I can level that out real quick and start feeling nothing again, right? I can desensitize super easy. I just struggle to force myself into one direction or the other. So if I wake up one morning, if I'm like, I want to have a good day today, I have to really fucking focus on having a good day that day, because otherwise I'll just stay at 0. And if I'm driving in traffic and I'm really pissed at someone and I don't want to be angry anymore, I can pull myself back to 0 again. But if I have to, fight someone, right? Like, I don't know, someone steps on my foot at the grocery store and I'm going to throw hands with this guy. I have to try really hard to get angry enough at him to fight him if I don't care, because stepping on my foot isn't a big deal to me.
yeah, I think for me it's the emotions will vary from -10 to 10 and slide around on that scale.
Mhm.
But I want to be able to function at the requirement I've set for myself, regardless of where on that scale I am.
That's a good goal to have.
Yeah. With and by that being the goal, I need to be able to function at my full capacity at a -10.
Yeah,
Because functioning at a 10 at your full capacity, I think is easier
right,
than functioning at a -10.
for sure.
So my goal being is if I'm at a -10 for the rest of my life, I
Right.
still want to be able to hit my marks.
Got it.
That's what I strive for.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think I spend enough time in the negative, like 3 and below category for it to be a focus of mine,
Mm,
especially because I know that if I have control over -10 to, let's just say, -5, right? Like, I can pull myself up from being absolutely enraged or mega depressed to being operational. I know I'll never be below a -10 for longer than, like, a few days.
mm.
And for those few days, I'll still probably be able to function, and if not, then who cares? It's a few days out of my life. I'm not losing enough. You know what I mean? But I know that I'm not gonna have to spend prolonged periods of time in that super negative state, and so it's not a huge concern for me to try to focus on, like, I guess to train that, I would have to put myself in that super negative state and then work to, like, acclimate myself for it in preparation for later on if I had to do it again, right? And I so rarely find myself in those negative states because someone else has to put me there. I can't bring myself there. Like I have to. So a girlfriend has to break up with me. A parent has to die. Something important has to happen to bring me that low. I can't put myself there intentionally. So it's tough for me to train that.
I think I sit below the 0 mark very regularly.
Why?
Just variety of different stresses and just goals that need to be met and achieved, and the hurdles that get in the way of them pose challenges. And I think that um, those challenges don't impact, or I resist I resist the potential negative impact that those things could have on my productivity, but they still do affect my mood per se. And so I think that operationally, I'm probably around 0 most of the time. And I thought about this a little bit this week, but I think that's like a lot of the reason that I really enjoyed like Kratom, or I enjoy Lolos, or hanging out, is like there is an aspect of disconnect from the emotional side that can be relieved through those things.
I get that.
And I think that it definitely wears on me, and I think that's why I seek like the small escapes. And something that I've been working on is how do I reduce those small escapes to where I don't even need them.
Hmm.
So that's like something I've started doing this week is cutting back down on the Lolos.
Mhm.
Like I had a period where like I started drinking them and I enjoyed it, and then I cut back, and then I started drinking them again, and so now I'm back in a cut, but I'm like I want to stay there.
Right.
And so that's what I'm shooting for right now in that department. And eventually I'll probably cut out the Zins and stuff too. But it's not as that one I don't quite see in the same way, because I don't feel a sensation of like relief or relaxation from Zins.
What do you get there? What is the sensation?
Uh Mental clarity.
That's what I get from the tea.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I got from the tea too, but I would have enough to where like it also disconnected me from the emotional part as well.
Hmm.
Like I didn't like the tea was a relief vehicle as well as a productivity thing for me.
Well, does that not align with the goals of being able to operate in a negative mood?
I'd rather it not be dependent on something external though. I'd like to be able to control that inside of myself. You know?
I guess at that point, it's if the tea removes you from that negative mood, then you're not operating in a negative mood because you aren't in that mood anymore because the tea took you out of it. Like
Yeah.
the tea is a method of regulating your mood, not
Yeah.
operating despite.
Right. I just don't want to be dependent on something like that for me to be able to function in a negative mood. So I'm trying to
Right.
cut out the stuff that takes me out of that negativity and develop a structure within my mind to allow me to still be 10 out of 10 productive in those cases.
Right.
And I think right now I can be like a 7 or 7.5 out of 10 productive in those states. But I want to get to the in like a really negative state. Like I can still push myself to like a 7 or 7.5, maybe.
Mhm.
But I really want to be able to be like at a 10 out of 10 functioning state regardless.
You're
That's where I want to be at.
you're saying 7.5, like a negative 7 point.
My effectivity in working and achieving my goals when I'm in a really negative state is like a 7.5 out of 10.
How often are you in really negative states?
Um,
Like,
I try to look at every day positively and feel blessed for the opportunities that I have, but I'd say I'm in like a pretty negative state probably.
below -7, between -10 and -7. How many days a year are you in -10 to -7?
Oh, I would say probably 30% of the time,
Really?
20% of the time.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And then I would say I'm probably between a -3 and a -7. Like, if I'm 20% between -7 and -10, I'm probably 60% between, like, -2 and -7. And I'm probably 20% between 20-ish% between, like, -2 and 8. Like, that whole spectrum
Mm,
is still a small percentage of, like,
interesting.
my overall being.
Interesting. Grace has this app that she keeps. It's I don't know what the fuck it's called. It's like I call it the B app because essentially what it is every day you go in and there's like it's like rank your mood from like very upset and angry to like whatever to neutral to a little bit happy to like super happy, right? And there did like it's a little picture of a bee making like
Mm,
a sad face or a happy face. So
that's cute.
you pick the bee that you felt most that day. And then you write like a really brief description of what happened that day. You check the boxes on did you go to the gym? Did you eat enough food? Did you drink enough water? Whatever. And then that's it. It takes like 5 minutes at the end of every day. But she has been doing it because she has recognized, okay, I cyclically have bad days, and I would like to know what factors contribute to those bad days so that I can avoid those things or manage them better because the bad days are catching me off guard and kind of ruining my day.
Yeah.
And so she's done that, and she hasn't had like a -10 day in like a month and a half because she's started to realize what contributing factors are there and then how to mitigate them.
I think that feeling feeling bad, though, and having a bad day are different for me. Because I can feel terrible throughout a day and still sit at the end of the day and go, "Okay, like, I felt like shit all day today,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean I had a bad day because I still worked, I
Right.
still met my goals, I still tried to be as productive as I could be, and I still pushed forward, and I still tried to show love to the people around me.
Right.
So today is a good day. I
Mhm.
felt bad, but I had a good day."
Why do you feel bad on good days?
Um, because I think you can have a good day regardless of if you feel good or bad. You can still be appreciative of the opportunity you have and love the people around you, even if you don't feel good. And I think that if you love the people around you and you pursue your goals and you push through the experience, that's fundamentally a good day.
Hmm,
Doesn't mean you have had to feel good to have a good day.
hmm.
But you still had a good day. I think every day. I think every day can be a good day, regardless of whether you feel good or not.
So then I would be curious to see.
Like, I had a good day yesterday, but, like, yesterday was filled with, like, nothing but, like, hurdle after hurdle. Like, the AC went out on the Miata randomly, and I was like, "Okay, like, sick." And then I put a new fuse in, and it didn't do anything, and then it magically started working when I got home, and I was like, "I guess it works now." And then I spent $800 on car parts, and then I had to list a bunch of shit on Marketplace that I don't wanna list, and then I'm still having ad account issues, and I'm missing hundreds of dollars, and I have a subscription coming up that I can't pay for, and I have bills that I can't pay for, like, all this shit, it's, like, sucks, like, straight up. But it's like I still had a good day yesterday because, like, I still woke up and I didn't shrivel up into a ball. Like, I pushed through it, and I made the most of it, and I put a smile on my face, and I loved and cared for the people around me, and I tried to show my appreciation as best I could.
So you had a good day. You had a bad day, but you felt good.
No, I felt terrible, but I had a good day.
Because you felt bad, but you had a good day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all those things made me feel terrible, but I still had a good day because I was I had a good day fundamentally because I was given the opportunity to push through another day,
Mm.
and I feel blessed for that, and I'm thankful for that opportunity, and I was able to still get through the tasks and the challenges and persevere regardless. And so that makes it a good day.
Interesting. I can't remember the last time that I had a good day but felt bad. I think I usually feel either in alignment with my day or I feel greater than the quality of the day itself. So, like, I can have a shit day and still feel okay, but very rarely do I have a great day and not feel good. And usually I can quantify why. Like if I'm having a great day but I don't feel good, it's likely because I feel like I'm falling behind on work or something, or I'm missing an action that I should be taking. But
Yeah.
it's all for me at least, it's all very operationalized. But it sounds like that's not the case for you. For you, it sounds like I can check all the boxes and still feel like shit.
I would flip that. I would say I can still feel like shit, but check all the boxes.
Is that the case? Because I guess for me, I'm saying I can influence my mood by checking the boxes. But you're saying you can't
Sometimes I can. Well, I'll rephrase that. Sometimes I think checking the boxes does influence my mood.
Mhm.
Sometimes checking the boxes doesn't influence my mood. I can make a choice to influence my mood, but through trying to influence my mood, I find that I sometimes take myself away from the work that needs to be done.
Hmm.
So I try to focus on the work that needs to be done regardless of the mood that I feel.
Mhm.
I think that's like a better breakdown.
So it's kind of like all the boxes get checked regardless of how you feel.
That's my goal. That's my ultimate goal. And I can have a good day regardless of how I feel, because a good day is
All
dependent
checked.
on the boxes and the pursuit of my dreams and goals.
That's
Those are boxes being
that's
checked.
interesting because I also strive to get all the boxes checked regardless of how I'm feeling. But in checking the boxes, I feel good. So it's like I'm gonna feel good. The boxes are gonna get checked, or I'm gonna strive to check the boxes regardless of how I feel. But so long as I'm checking the boxes, then I feel good. So then cyclically, so long as the boxes are getting checked, I feel good. And then it's a positive feedback loop. And then I'm more likely to check the boxes. So if there's a day where I'm not checking all the boxes, I probably don't feel as good because I'm not checking all the boxes. And then that motivates me the next day to check the boxes and feel good again. Right. And eventually I check so many boxes that I have to draw more boxes. Like this week, I got so much done this week and the week prior that I had to start adding boxes. And I did so much extra that I'm able to take off yesterday and today, apart from the podcast. Because I outdid all the boxes that needed to be done.
Yeah, over the last months, I've felt very little from checking the boxes.
That I think is probably at the core of what's different.
Yeah, like yesterday, I did um the invoicing for the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Felt nothing from that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. And like on the surface, I would expect me to feel like, oh, nice, this is done, cool. But
Did
it's
you
like that entire experience was like, okay, what documents do I download? What do I print? What do I write? Put it in the binder. 4 hours later, done. Next. Like there was no sense of like happiness or satisfaction or joy from having completed that.
Is that because the joy and satisfaction that you would typically feel is overshadowed or pulled down by all the bullshit with the dropshipping?
Potentially, yeah, potentially. It could have pulled me from like a -7 to a -5, and I just didn't really notice it.
Right.
But my point being is that regardless of where I sit on the -10 to 10 scale, I
You still got it
still
done.
want to be able to check the boxes.
Yeah. I think that the trend that I have noticed in myself is that I am more likely to check more boxes if I feel good. Or maybe I enjoy checking the boxes more if I feel good. So it's a positive feedback loop. So it's kind of like as long
I
as the air to
agree.
feel ratio is there, keep it going. So I'm going to try to stay as in a positive mood as I can, as much as I can, because I get more checked.
I completely agree. I think I can function at a 10 out of 10 when I feel like a 10, and I can function at a 7.5 out of 10 when I feel like a -10, right? So I agree. I am definitely more productive when I feel better.
Yeah.
But my goal is to be 10 out of 10 functionality, regardless of whether the emotional scale is at a -10 or a 10.
Mm.
That's my goal.
What puts you so negative?
Um, I think I think financial stress definitely doesn't help. Um, and then I think that mixed with how much I absolutely despise my job
Mhm.
definitely doesn't help. And I think those two things mixed in with um feeling as though sometimes I'm kind of staring into the abyss with business. Those things combined don't shed a lot of light on the positive side of my mood.
So it's like
And I think honestly, being at work has a large negative impact on my mood for sure, because I really despise being there.
Right.
I really hate it.
Right.
Um,
But you have to go to work extra
you
too,
have
because you have to pay the bills.
Right.
Because in order to do the business, when other people feel like letting you do the business, you have to have the money to spend on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then as I work more overtime, I have to push sacrifices in other directions in order to be able to achieve the business. Right. And so those sacrifices could potentially be things that lift up my mood, like going to Pauhana. Right. And so now I have a function where a majority of my inputs are either neutral or negative.
Right.
And so I have to, for this time at least, ideally, I would say, I think I would like to adopt this for the rest of my life, being able to function at a 10 out of 10 effectivity on a negative 10 emotional side or a positive 10 emotional side. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess that's the rundown, I would
Got
say,
it.
I think.
Got it. That makes sense. Sucks, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely sucks sometimes, for sure.
I think the real estate has helped me in going to work every day, because now every day that I go to work, there's a potential that I run into somebody who could be a potential client. So it's more exciting to go to work because I can do business at work.
Mm,
Um, but I feel the same drudgery with work. And then also, apart from Kahuna Cravings, this is my first time making money at something that isn't a 9 to 5 or like an odd job. Like, this
mm.
is a replicatable, like, routine, reliable
Yeah.
um way of earning money. So I almost feel like, okay, well, even if I lost my job tomorrow, I can still make something happen. Um, so the financial
See, I don't
is
feel that right now.
right. Well, the issue is that if Blue Marlin fires me tomorrow, I'll just go to a different brokerage, and if that doesn't work, I'll just get my broker's license, right? But if your ad account decides that they don't want you to have an ad account anymore, or if your ad agency decides that they don't want you to have an account tomorrow, to go find another ad agency, which is possible, but it costs a shitload of money, more than switching brokerages would.
Yeah. It
And
costs money enough.
they can hamstring you by stopping you from doing that. So it's outside influence, right? It's a dependency on another business organization in order to conduct your own.
It's outside influence that I can solve, but by what means am I willing to solve it? Am I willing to get a personal loan at 20% APR and solve it? Because that'll solve the problem, right? But now I generate a $20,000 loan at 20% APR, right? So, like, all the problems can be within my means. It's just about how do I strategically apply the resources that I have in order to yield the highest probability that I solve this without completely setting fire to everything in my life right now.
Right. Well, and also, is that a solve? Because if you have more money, you can go to a different ad agency, right? And that's a solve so long as they don't pull the same bullshit that this one did,
Right.
which fingers crossed they don't. Um, I think owning your own ad agency is probably the only way to verifiably say that you're not going to get fucked, right?
Yeah, well, even then, it's relying on Meta.
Right.
You know, I could apply for a job at Meta.
Be an inside man.
Yeah, inside
And then you can tell
mechanical engineering at Meta.
everyone else that you don't know why Meta is red flagging shit, because you don't even have access then.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think it comes down to just, do you have the ability to do something about it? You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, for Hermosi with the gym, it's like you can go out and like pull people off the street and like bring them into your gym and then give them a free month, right? With real estate, I can go knock on people's doors.
Yeah.
Like, there's an endless number of doors for me to knock on. It's just, am I willing to put in the work? But for the ad agencies, it's like you can make countless numbers of ads and throw countless amounts of money at it. But if someone else has a shitty algorithm that just decides that it's not going to do it anymore, then you're fucked.
Yeah, in that way, yes, but
Well, and I
there's always
understand
a
why that feels like shit, because it's like, It's like learned helplessness. It's like early stages of learned helplessness, where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to put in a bunch of effort, and then you're going to kick me in the dick, and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, and I've been kicked in the dick like 6 times now.
Right. The
And
problem is, like, it's not getting kicked in the dick like happenstantial, right? It's getting kicked in the dick by like someone else's incompetence, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like business happens in the sense that like, okay, sometimes there's the economy's bad and no one buys or sells homes, and that's just the way it is. And like that's business happens. Sometimes COVID hits and people don't go to gyms. Business happens. But this is like someone else. I am reliant on someone else to help me effectively run my business, and they don't give a fuck. It's like a bad business partner.
Yeah, I mean, but, there's always something I could do. Like, I could switch the model and buy a bunch of products and go door to door to sell it. I could make advertisements on TikTok instead. I can make advertisements on YouTube instead. I can make advertisements on Google instead. I could send out news flyers about the product. Right? There's an infinite number of things I could do to solve the problem. It's just a matter of what am I going to choose to do about it,
Mhm.
and in what range of feasibility do I feel as though that solution falls in, and am I comfortable with that scope of feasibility? And if so, I'll go for it. And if so, I'll seek an alternative.
Are Facebook ads better than Google ads?
They reach different markets. So Meta is definitely the largest potential marketing platform just because it is so vast between Facebook and Instagram,
Mhm.
and it has so much data behind it.
Hmm.
Google is also great, but Google, from what I understand, is more search engine correlated.
Mm.
And if your product is new to the market and no one knows to look for it, how will they find it?
Also, when I'm on Google, I'm looking for something specific and don't want to be bothered by other things. But if I'm on Facebook, I'm there because I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah,
I'm in consumer mode.
yeah, yeah. And YouTube ads could be a potential, right?
Yeah.
Um, TikTok ads could be a potential, right? But there's a infinite number of solutions to my problem. It's just about what is within the scope of what I deem feasible to solve this particular issue,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, but it's sometimes challenging because sometimes the feasible thing to do is wait. That's sometimes the best thing because when you've spent money at 4 different agencies and you've had 6 different ad accounts locked up and you don't have any money or resources to be able to fund more, and you're collecting interest on your credit cards and you don't know how you're gonna pay your bills, sometimes the most feasible thing to do is to work overtime and wait to get your account back.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's a really hard pill to swallow,
Hmm.
at least for me,
Yeah.
because I could do something, right?
Yeah.
But is it within the scope of feasibility or what I deem feasible?
Right.
That's the hardest part of it to swallow is like, there are things I could do about this, but the most reasonable and logical thing to do is sit
Hmm.
and just try to build up as best you can and set yourself up to defend against these problems.
Hmm.
Like I literally don't have, even if I wanted to get another ad agency right now, I don't have a $500 minimum set balance to send them. I
Right.
don't have it.
Right. So
I
I
could
guess
go get out of one. I could sell things on Facebook Marketplace, right?
we could flip cars and bids again.
Yeah. I mean, there's a thousand things to do, right? But it's just a matter of what am I going to decide to do? What's the ROI on that? And how am I going to balance my time in order to give myself the highest probability of achieving my goals?
Right.
And so, regardless of whether I'm making the right or wrong decision, I'm making a decision I feel as though is calculated.
Hmm. I guess then it's easier to not focus on happiness because it's not a controllable variable.
Right.
And people will focus on trying to manipulate a variable that doesn't have any buttons or switches. And that's just mental masturbation and wasting time.
Yeah.
But creatively, I've found a way to do that because I derive happiness from things that I can control. Like, I can do things that make me happy and then feel happy.
I can't I can too,
Mm.
right? If I hop on my simulator, that'll make me happy at least for some period of time. Maybe I'll have some anxiety about the work that needs to be done, but
Right.
at some point in the corner, in my little simulator in the GT3, like I'll feel good, right? And so I can do things that evoke that sense of happiness, but I haven't seen those things as a cure. And so if I can't cure the feeling, why don't I figure out how to live with it and be productive towards my goals while experiencing it or not experiencing it?
Right. Regardless.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of where I've settled.
Yeah. Interesting. Two different philosophies.
Yeah. Another
I
cool
guess
conversation though.
I guess it's kind of at its crux. It's you can't control what makes you happy. You can do what makes you happy, but you can't control what makes you happy. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm super lucky that I get happiness from doing dumb amounts of work. Because if I didn't, then I would just feel like shit doing it. And at that point, I would have to say, okay, well, the work is my goal. So I'm just going to have to learn how to eat shit at the same time. But I'm lucky because I enjoy doing that work. So I don't have to worry about how I feel when I do it. Because when I do it, I feel fine.
Yeah, and there are some things that make me feel happy for sure, but my goal is to um be productive and effective towards my goals regardless, and just kind of let the emotions flow in and out, but let the effectivity of my work stay constant.
Right. All right. That's all I got.
That's all I have.
Okay, sure. So
Yeah.
for my dial-in quote today, I control F'd in my quotes document, and the word happy or happiness appears 4 times. So I had like a limited um selection, and I didn't like any of those, so I went with something different. This is a Hormozy quote, and he says, "Everyone is trying to be someone, but very few people are trying to be themselves." And I think that that is a reflection of this whole happiness thing because people are trying to be happy by doing things that they think will make them happy. So the whole money doesn't buy happiness thing comes from a function of people who think that getting money will make them happy when that's not what makes that particular person happy. Someone who achieves peak happiness by winning a rowing race, the money doesn't matter. The winning matters. Sometimes money can help you get closer to that, but it's not the actual money itself that makes you happy. It's the winning. And so a lot of people are focused on trying to be someone or trying to do the things that traditionally will make someone happy, but very few people are trying to be themselves. Very few people are trying to consider what makes them happy and what can they do to get to that point. And if you can optimize that, like I think I have, in aligning your goals with what makes you happy, then you get both 2 for 1. That's what I got.
Yeah. Optimization is a interesting point too. I thought of this quote, I don't know why, but Elon Musk has this principle where he's like, when he's getting into new businesses or trying to tackle the businesses, and he's like, first look at the requirements, eliminate all requirements, um,
Look at the requirements. Eliminate them.
eliminate all requirements that you feel as though potentially wouldn't have a positive impact on the function of the business,
Right.
and then start working to speed up the process, then figure out how to optimize and then automate.
Yep.
And so it's interesting. I guess in some way I see like how I've experienced happiness is, I guess I've eliminated the requirement for happiness. And so I just continue to like I'm trying to eliminate, I guess, that as a requirement in my life. instead of trying to work through how I automate or optimize or automate the function of happiness in my life. So I see as almost like I think you've been more successful in optimizing a structure that can produce an outcome of happiness
Mm-hmm.
or a potential outcome of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to eliminate the requirement for happiness so I don't have to work on the ladder.
Right.
That's kind of like two different approaches to it,
Right. I
which is
think
interesting.
I think also it's like the requirements that I'm writing for this system that's going to do something, right?
Yeah.
The requirements are the system has to get the work done.
Mm,
The system has to get the work done in a timely fashion. The system has to get up every day and do the work. And then as a byproduct, when the system is operational, one of its capabilities is making me happy, right? But I think that I don't have to focus as much on being happy. I don't have to feel a 10 out of 10 every day or ever, because as long as I'm not feeling unhappy, I'm fine. I don't care. I don't need to be in a state of like elation,
mm,
right?
mm.
But I can be confident that even if I feel 0 150 days in a row, if I do enough of the work and I check enough of the boxes, eventually I'll feel something above a 0, right? Um, and I'm usually able to control whether or not I feel -10 to 0. So it's easy for me to stay at 0, and I'm confident that if I do the work, then eventually I'll feel above a 0. So not feeling happiness isn't a requirement because it's not a concern, because I'm confident that I'll feel it eventually anyways. I think if I went for a prolonged period of time not feeling any happiness, then that would probably cast the work that I'm doing into doubt, and I would then have to reconsider, am I working on the right thing or am I doing the work the right way? And at that point, I would reconsider. So, like, had I gone the drop shipping route with you, I would be unhappy almost for sure. I would be below 0, completely, definitely, because it's not something that is of interest to me.
Mm.
Um, and so I would be at a 0 or a negative, even if it was working well. Um, and for my own case, I'm almost certain that it would not work well. It didn't the first time. I don't think I could get it to work if I tried. So I would probably feel 0 and below most days. And at that point, I would have to consider, okay, I haven't had an above 0 day for a long time. I'm putting a lot of effort into not feeling negative integers and feeling 0. I've got to change what I'm doing. And I think that's a good test of if I'm working on the right thing, then I won't be in the negatives. I'll probably be at zeros most days, or maybe even a positive integer. That's a good test of for
Hmm.
myself of if I'm working on the right thing.
It's a cool perspective. I enjoyed this.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was fun.
it's a 5-hour podcast.
No, it hasn't been that long.
It's been a while. All right, that's all I got.
Well, have a great week, and
Don't. It's not a requirement.
you can have a great week. You don't have to have a happy week. But
Yeah, well, the next
regardless
episode.
of how your week is, we will see you next time. So be well.